Hi there, everyone! This is the ABCs of RPGs, where we teach you the basics of tabletop role-playing games. Today, I am your game master, Spencer, and I'm joined by my player, Dalton.
Hi, everybody. My name's Dalton. I'm a player, and I don't know who I'm going to be yet for the next few weeks. I'm excited to find out.
We're gonna find out. We'll talk about the game here in a second, but I want to introduce to everybody else. We also have Dan.
Hey everyone, I'm Dan. I also don't know who I am, and I guess I'm not talking about the game. No.
Oh, and of course we have Justin.
Hey everybody, I'm Justin. I do know what I'm going to be playing. I have put a little bit more thought into this. I did lots of historical research. Probably too much.
Probably too much. And we have Ashley.
Hi everyone, my name's Ashley. My pronouns are she, her. I'm gonna be playing Irene. Excited for you guys to meet her.
Oh, Irene. All right, and last but not least, we have Christian.
Hello, my name is Christian. My pronouns are he, him. My investigator's pronouns are he, him. And yeah, I mean, more to come on that. But I love lamp and a nice pair of slacks, and yeah.
Oh, that's perfect.
Do you or your investigator love lamp, or is that both?
I love lamp.
We share.
I love lamp.
You share a love of lamp.
Similarities.
Okay.
All right. Well, as we kind of hinted and mentioned today, and for the next couple of weeks, maybe the whole month of October, we are going to be playing the tabletop RPG known as Call of Cthulhu. So, this is a horror tabletop RPG where actually most people, the characters that the investigators we're going to meet today might not make it past one or two sessions. They might fall victim to whatever mysteries are afoot going on in the world. But yeah, as a brief little thing about Call of Cthulhu, it's set in the 1920s. Based on the stories made by H.P. Lovecraft. And I can go into a little bit more, but essentially, H.P. Lovecraft made this kind of like Cthulhu's mythos, where there's all sorts of creatures kind of hidden beneath the surface that are deadly and are always just one step away from turning the world upside down and making it an apocalypse universe. Some things to note, and here's one of the coolest things, is we're going to be running the starter set of Call of Cthulhu. Dun, da, da, da. And one of the coolest parts is it gives you a little introduction to the setting and everything, but it acknowledges that anybody who might know H.P. Lovecraft, including Justin doing all of his research and everything, knows that H.P. Lovecraft, while he created a very cool and interesting world, he had some views that were very outdated. But it's really cool to see, and in fact, this game acknowledges that, hey, H.P. Lovecraft created this very cool world, but he had very distasteful racism and outdated personal views. And the game kind of takes the essence of his ideas while moving forward and realizing that those views are wrong. And I think that's one of the coolest things about this, because to kind of put it into scale, here's what the Lovecraftian kind of mythos is about. Essentially, while humanity might crave both comfort and the truth, only one or the other is possible. The human mind is an inflexible container and cannot contain both cosmic truth and complete sanity. More of one poured in must spill out the other. So it creates this kind of this setup where in each of these adventures that all the players are going to be experiencing, there is a mystery afoot. But unfortunately, as you're solving this mystery, as you're saving the world, you're going insane. You can't comprehend some of the things you're seeing, or you might go crazy and not help the party at all. And that's kind of the main dynamic in Call of Cthulhu and what makes it so cool and so spooky. But before we go into it further, this is going to be our session 0, where we kind of like create our characters, create our investigators, and what we're going to kind of do. We're going to kind of like talk about next, like what we're excited about with the game. Then we're going to go into a very in-depth character creation process, where we talk more about like how the basics, how you put together a character, because there's multiple ways to do it. Kind of like go over some of the basic rules. And even then do example roles, so you kind of know, or everybody here knows, how the mechanics of the game is going to look while we're weaving this story. And then at the end, we'll have a little teaser for our session 1 next week. So, but first off, let's just kind of go through and talk about why we want to play Call of Cthulhu and what we're excited for with this game. In fact, Dalton, do you want to lead us off with that?
Sure. Yeah. I'm excited for this for quite a few reasons. I think mostly I'm excited for a system that is less like focused on direct, like punchy, swordy combat. Something that is a little bit more like focused on not necessarily like discussion, but like action outside of just violence, or physical violence. Anyway, I'm sure there's going to be a lot of
psychological violence.
Yes, psychological violence being inflicted on various individuals, but less like swords and stuff, and more battle of the minds kind of situations.
Yeah, I mean, to piggyback off that, Dalton, I think it really makes you play as a human, you know? Mm-hmm. And I haven't played this game before, but I'm imagining when you're in those situations where you're literally staring down like something that looks like it's straight out of Stranger Things. I mean, who is actually going to stand there, you know? Like, the only strategy is run. Mm-hmm. Like run,
okay.
You know? Unless you have to fight, right? So I think it'll be really interesting to see like how it forces us to play as, you know, humans who are vulnerable and who are capable of dying from high falls.
Mm-hmm.
Like what happened in my solo adventure.
Yeah, exactly.
Justin, you've played Call of Cthulhu before.
Many moons ago. What
are you excited for about it?
Well, I'm excited to see some of the changes. I'm excited to see some of the changes. Doesn't look like mechanically a whole lot has changed, but you know, I'm excited to, because honestly, it was so long ago. It really kind of feels like I'm playing it again for the first time. Mm-hmm. So that's exciting. You know, and again, I agree with Dan. It's going to be fun to play a game where you're just a regular person and not some fantastic warrior or mage. Mm-hmm. You know, having to worry about a small knife wound ending your life in the game is going to be fun. Dealing with the element of sanity is going to be interesting. I'm excited that our viewers will be able to learn with us.
Yeah.
And see how a much more mentally and socially focused system is going to be, rather than, you know, like Dalton said, a more physically inclined system plays out.
Yeah.
Not that those attributes really don't have like a pretty big impact, because size and stuff like that, size and power can actually have a big impact on the game.
Yeah.
Even outside of combat. Like, hey, lift this thing. And you're like, I'm a teeny little flapper girl. I cannot.
I can't do this.
I cannot do this. Well, I'm a child. You can play a kid in this game. That's totally like, you know, you can play a creepy little kid.
I like mysteries too.
Yeah. Just all the things, they come at night. You know, so I mean, that's another fun thing about this game, and it's just, I mean, I think tone-wise, it really couldn't be more different than D&D.
Yeah.
Tone and mechanics are just, and they're not, you know, they're not opposite. They're just really super different.
Yeah. which is, I think, very cool and engaging, because like that's like, for somebody who's so used to D&D as like the golden like staple of tabletop role-playing games, to kind of like experience something else. That like Call of Cthulhu just hit their 40th anniversary in 2021. So it's been around for like almost the same amount of time, but it's a very different system. So I think it's kind of cool.
Yeah.
So
I brought this up. I don't know if I brought this up on stream or just like in private before, but one thing that I find really cool is that I think it was Japan, the most popular tabletop RPG is Call of Cthulhu. Like for some reason D&D just like missed Japan, and when they think of tabletop RPGs, they think of Call of Cthulhu, not D&D, like we do here in the States.
yeah.
I had no idea. That's crazy.
Yeah, like this is their tabletop, like their D&D is Call of Cthulhu,
Yeah.
where they're just like, oh, sometimes my character just dies.
Yeah, guys, I have to say, one thing that I'm like extremely excited for. I'm like going through all the occupations, just like trying to figure out like who I want my character to be, and it's massive. I mean, you could be anything. You can literally be anything, and they have like, hey, here are stats for that.
Yeah,
Here's your income level. Here's like your contacts, your network, like
Credit rating. You have a credit score in this game.
you do.
Right. Yeah, it's like you could be a communist if you want. And this is like 1920s, right? So anything that's like kind of possible in the 1920s. But I'm going through, and there's like hacker. So I could, be like a computer hacker in the 1920s, even though computers weren't a thing. No.
Yep.
Yeah.
Electrical engineering is a skill.
Electrical engineering, computers in the sense that a device that makes computations, yes. Not necessarily computers in our modern sense.
So it's more of like
vacuum tubes and like mechanical computers.
Okay, it's like a steampunky kind of hacking. Okay.
Ashley, what about you? What are you? What are you
You'd have
pumped
like
for?
these little cards, and there was giant machines, and you put the punch cards in, and they like read the punches in the cards and do the math for you.
I feel like
That's still early for that time period, but I could see that.
Yeah.
I could see that being something like tapping into a phone, or like being able to,
like phone whizzes. That's like the earliest form of hacking.
yeah.
I think we'll learn more about this during character creation.
Correct. And before we get there, Ash, Christian, are there any other things that you're excited about for like why you guys wanted to play Call of Cthulhu?
Yeah, so I have really only played Dungeons and Dragons and then Symborum as far as tabletop role-playing games. And so where I'm going with this is that I'm really excited for the sanity element, like has been brought up, but Symborum had an element called corruption. So I'm a little bit familiar with that kind of element where your character risks being forever altered and unplayable, even though it's not necessarily death. And I'm really interested in that and really intrigued by that. And I think it's really interesting that you can have a dumb character who doesn't recognize your eldritch horrors, who does better because they're not going insane because they don't even recognize that that was a ghoul or whatever it is. Versus like if you are a very intelligent character, you may understand what you're looking at, and that is not going to be good for the brain. So I'm just really excited to kind of explore that element of sanity. I'm not saying I want Irene to go insane, but like I'm pretty psyched for her first bout of madness. Christian, what are you excited for?
Yeah, I agree with the insanity mechanic, introducing this interesting facet to your character and how situations kind of develop. I think it definitely gives the I want to say DM. Well, again, sorry, correct me. What is
the keeper of arcane
technical
lore?
title? Yeah, the keeper of arcane lore. Definitely gives them a lot of room to work with, and what happens when a specific character goes insane at this in this series of events and in this environment, and kind of what has happened so far, like how that informs the story and kind of where the keeper can go with that. It'd be really interesting. And as Dan said, I think there's a lot of room for role play here, and really using the world and to your advantage.
Yeah.
And I am very curious how this game will inform us as just TTRPG players, and how we play games going forward.
Yeah.
I think that's the really interesting part of it. So I'm excited.
Yeah. I mean, piggybacking off you just a little bit, I mean, like, it's crazy how many times I'm reading these adventures, and it like specifically is just like, all right, this was a crazy thing that happened. If they called the police, and then it goes into what happens if the police show up. Like, that's going, like, if you don't know stuff, you can go to the library and like look it up. If you witness like somebody dying, you can call the police. Like, those are some of the aspects, like in D&D, that would never happen. So it's really
the royal
cool.
god.
Right. So that's really cool. But yeah, thank you everyone for telling us more about like what you're kind of excited for, and let's kind of get into character creation. So Dalton, if you are able, could you pull up like the top of the character sheet where we just see like the base characteristics and such, and we can kind of go into more. We're gonna kind of go into more about how we're gonna do that.
Yeah.
I believe everybody here has a character sheet in front of them, and what we're gonna do is just kind of walk through everything while all the players are kind of putting things together. So first off, what I want to talk about is, as Christian said, I, as normally known as the Game Master in Call of Cthulhu, I am what's known as the Keeper of Arcane Lore, which is basically a fancy word of saying, like, I kind of control the world and present everything that happens and stuff like that. It's very similar to that role in other games where I'm like the console system, and everybody else who are the players, or what's known as the investigators, are kind of like interacting with the world that I am presenting to them. So essentially, give a little bit background, like we were talking about. The Call of Cthulhu setting, this one at least presented here, takes place in the 1920s. So if you're unfamiliar with the era, it's the Prohibition era. Alcohol's banned in the U.S. You have flapper girls. You have, think of The Great Gatsby, where, there's all sorts of like ritzy kind of like, that's the architecture of kind of like what's going on. There's definitely bootleggers that are getting alcohol in and stuff like that. There's all that kind of thing. Justin, with all your research, am I missing anything about the 1920s that's really important?
Jazz, booze running.
That's it, jazz. Yeah, for sure.
World War One, probably.
Yeah, World War One just happened, so there's a whole bunch of people who have lots of undiagnosed PTSD from that.
Yeah, it was called shell shocked, I believe, after World War One.
Yeah,
but because like it wasn't, they didn't really have a diagnosis for it. But
yeah,
I mean the diagnosis was shell shock. We just didn't. We started calling it a different thing.
Yeah.
Still an illness.
Learned to hit the bottle.
Yeah. I mean, everybody knows that Cthulhu did World War One.
Legal opium. Oh wait, no more legal opium.
Yeah.
Do we still have cocaine in our Coca-Cola?
No, that all stopped. That all actually stopped with Prohibition. Up until then, you could get like cannabis tinctures, various opioids, cocaine, all just over the counter in any drugstore. Toothache tablets actually were pretty much just pressed cocaine.
Well, I've had this bad toothache for about 3 months now.
I mean, makes you feel okay. Numbs the tooth. Did a pretty good job.
Anywho, back.
Also, a big. There are a lot of older people who had big time heroin problems because of the morphine addiction caused by the Civil War, which only happened 40 years before that.
Oh. Yeah.
We
you
wouldn't
had
we
the
wouldn't
Great
have painkiller
Migration.
addictions in modern days. Like history wouldn't repeat itself like that.
No, history never repeats itself ever.
We totally wouldn't learn from a pandemic that happened in the 1900s and
Oh yeah,
Played out.
yeah. Spanish flu just kind of popping around, and the Spanish-American War just happened.
So, anywho,
Stuff.
back to the statistics.
it's almost like history repeats itself every 100 years.
Weird.
It's almost like we live in a simulation.
Different game, Dan. Different game.
Different game.
We're all just a tabletop RPG aliens are playing.
Oh, can we play as Twitch streamers? I want to play the Twitch
That's my
streamer
occupation.
tabletop
What
RPG.
stats?
I
what
rolled to
stats
make a
does
joke.
Twitch streamer get?
Ooh, that's a critical fail.
Ah, damn it.
So anyways, so very similar characteristics that you would find in D&D that we played before. So you have strength, STR, which measures the raw physical power the investigator can bring to bear. You have constitution, a measure of health and hardiness of your investigator. Power, which is labeled POW, is a combination of the force of will, spirit, and mental stability. So it's more so like mental power rather than like physical, because that's what strength is. You have dexterity, a measure of your investigator's physical agility and speed. Appearance, which is means exactly what it is, measures the physical appeal of your character. I think like more updated modern interpretations of this is kind of like what Justin hit it at. It's not necessarily how you look, but maybe like how you present yourself as well. And I think that kind of can factor into appearance, but that's my own little flavor to it. Size reflects your investigator's combined height and weight, so that's like physical size right there. Intelligence is a rough measure of your investigator's cunning and ability to make leaps of logic and intuition. Now, this sounds exactly like intelligence in D&D, and it's very similar until you get to the next stat, education, which is the measure of knowledge that your investigator has accumulated through formal education or the venerated School of Hard Knocks. So I would argue that intelligence in this game is more akin to maybe wisdom, whereas education is more so intelligence in comparing directly to D&D. I don't know how you guys kind of will like to relate it and everything, but at least in this game, education is like your formal teachings, while your intelligence is kind of like your own ability to be like, oh, I'm going to connect these dots and this, and this, and there we go. That's the solution. So
I think that's pretty fair. I mean, D&D kind of summarizes it as, your end score is your acquired knowledge, and wisdom is application of knowledge.
yeah.
Right.
So there are 3 different ways in Call of Cthulhu to kind of make your characters. In the starter set, which is what we're playing, there's only one way that they provide, which is the quickfire way. The other 2 ways, which if you have a keeper handbook, which to everybody at home, if you don't have the starter set and you're thinking about like what books to buy and everything, it's a little bit different if you're coming straight from D&D. And I'm sorry if I keep making direct from D&D reference points. I just know that for me and for a lot of other people out there, a lot of people are introduced to tabletop RPGs from D&D. So that's why I'm kind of making comparisons like that. But if you're looking at the different books that Call of Cthulhu has, they have the Keeper Handbook and the Investigator Handbook and like several other like adventures and such like that. But if you're looking at it, I know like with D&D, the Player's Handbook is what you need to get started. It's a little bit different from Call of Cthulhu. The Keeper Handbook, while you may think, oh, it's just like the DMG, it's not. The Keeper Handbook is like all the basic introduction instructions for how to play Call of Cthulhu, whereas the Investigator Handbook is more so just like expanding rules for like creating your own investigator, but doesn't really teach you all the rules of how to play the game. So if you're looking to get a book and you can only buy one book, the Keeper Handbook is probably going to be your best bet because it has all the rules entailed within it. And with that, if you're following along with the Keeper Handbook on page 48, it gives you different rules or different ways to create your character. It introduces that just like in D&D, you can roll up stats for your character. It also says like, hey, Also, you can point by, so you start with like 460 points and you can kind of divide that up, or you do the quick fire, which is what I'm about to go into with the starter set. And players, investigators, if any of you want to do any of the other rules, like Dan, I know you want to kind of min-max your way out, we can do point by with you if you want to do that too.
No, I'm doing quick fire actually.
All right.
And I was reading through all the occupations and I saw one that kind of lines up perfectly. So I've got a surprise when we get to that part.
All right. So, anyways. Go ahead.
That kind of leads into something, Dan, that I think is an important like distinction to make right off the bat for like people coming from like D&D or like more traditional RPGs, is that Call of Cthulhu doesn't seem to have like a class system, right? Like you have your occupation, which is more of like a pick and choose like stats and abilities. Like what
it's
stats,
a suggestion.
Yeah, it's a suggestion of like what skills you're good at. Whereas like D&D, you are a paladin, and paladins have special abilities that like druids don't. That doesn't really exist in Call of Cthulhu, right?
Correct. Exactly what you're saying, Dalton. And definitely when we get to like picking skills out and everything like that, that's going to be important. And I'm glad you're bringing it up anyways right now, because we're about to be assigning characteristics and stuff. And you may be thinking like, well, you know, like a fighter, I need to have strength, so I should put stuff in there. Normally you're picking your class first in D&D compared to everything else. Like you're saying, Dalton, the coolest thing is that the closest comparison to classes that Call of Cthulhu has is occupations, which kind of gives suggestions on different skills you should do, which is kind of like proficiencies in D&D. But really, that's like from bottom up, you can make whatever character you want, and it will not take away from your experience in Call of Cthulhu. Which is really cool. Like, as we're going through, we're about to assign stats how we want and stuff like that. When we go to skills, we get to assign that how we want there too. The reason why we keep bringing up occupations is that goes like, oh, are you a private investigator? Well, here's some skills that we think would be good for a private investigator. But at any point in time, you can say that, oh, well, I want to be a private eye, but I don't like these skills. I'm not going to choose those. I'm going to choose these skills instead. Perfectly fair, perfectly fine. If anything, if you're thinking about classes or how do I fit with the party, with the other investigators, I think it is good to communicate what other skills the other investigators are picking, just so you have a well-balanced team and you know that you're all kind of like picking skills that kind of complement each other. But, you know, ultimately, Call of Cthulhu, one of the best things that I like about it is that it's completely customizable from the bottom up. So, which is really cool.
So I think everybody's here. We're all going to be free to do character creation, however, but I think I'm going to be the one filling out my character sheet on screen, and I'll probably be using the quickfire rules just to keep things simple.
Yes.
If anybody wants to speak up as they're making their character, please jump in. But Spencer, what is step 1 on the list list of steps?
Step quickfire. Step 1. So we're going to be filling out the base characteristics, which you actually see on screen right now, and we just covered. So what we're taking is the strength, constitution, dexterity, intelligence, size, power, appearance, education. We are putting in the following values that I'm about to list into each of these. So you only get so many of each of these values. So you have a 40 value. You have 3 50 values. Uh-oh. Sorry.
Welcome back, Christian.
No, that was Ashley.
Ashley?
Yeah.
Oh, no.
We're a little mixed up right now. Technical issues. Ashley, are you? Yes, there we go.
Yes,
Perfect.
I got
All right,
booted. I
we're
don't
good.
know what happened.
Well, you're back in now. We're good.
Hey, I'm dead again.
Yay! So, you have a 40, you have 3 50s, 2 60s, a 70, and an 80. Now, that may be gibberish to most of you. You may be thinking, wait. I'm assigning these characteristics. I don't know what these numbers mean. What's higher numbers are probably good numbers, right? And in fact, they are. So how Call of Cthulhu works, and I'll just explain this very basic skills and like attributes really quickly when it comes to checks, because we'll go into more detail later, but basically think of it on a scale of 0 to 100. And so when you're assigning these skills, if you only get 180. So your 80 stat is going to be your highest. So you have 180 stat, 170 stat, 260 stats, 350 stats, and 140 stat, which is going to be your weakest, going to be your lowest. Because when we do these checks, when we do these rolls, it's on a scale of 0 to 100, where it's all 100% based. So when you make these checks, if you want to be really good at your dexterity checks, put your 80 in that one, if that makes sense. So, yeah, I can read those numbers back again if you guys want.
Please.
Okay.
You're good.
You have a 40, 140. You have 50 3 times. So you have 50, 50, 50. Three characteristics that are 50, which in Call of Cthulhu, 50 is average. You have 2 of the 60 stats. So 2 of your characteristics are going to be 60. 1 of your characteristics is going to be a 70. And 1 is going to be an 80, which is going to be your highest.
Cool. Well, as I'm going through mine, Spencer, if you want to go,
Yeah.
we can do a quick discussion while everybody's thinking. I'm going to be playing a character named Marvin Martin, who is an amateur radio operator. He's throwing down truth over the early AM waves, and
Sorry.
Let's see here. I'm not sure on birthplace, residence, or pronouns yet, so I will. Well, I am sure on pronouns.
We'll figure that out.
I can fill that out later. But I'm going through my character, and I'm trying to think like this is the 1920s. Radio is like barely a thing. So
Yeah.
he's probably going to have some like points invested in like education, and that's probably got to be a big thing for him because he's got to know a lot about on like how to operate this equipment that like next to nobody knows how to use. So that's probably got to be like his 70 or 80. And like along the same vein, like if this dude is like doing this like weird niche like radio thing, like his appeal is probably going to be pretty low. Like he's going to be like in the like it's going to be dark where he is. Like he doesn't care about he's not like
He doesn't.
yeah, he's got like he doesn't care about his clothes. He doesn't care about like what how his outward appearance. So that's probably going to be honestly his appeal is APP
Appearance.
Are you okay? That's probably going to be
the same thing.
Same thing.
that's probably going to be his 40, and I think his education is going to be his 80.
The 80. Nice.
The rest.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I'm kind of. We can talk about like how these other things like automatically filled out and what those mean later, but
yeah.
let's see here. I've used my 80 and 40. What do you think my 70? Where my 70 could go?
Do you think Marvin is intelligent? Do you think not only is he educated, is he an intelligent person? Like, did he have to have it on knowledge to know about the radio? Or yeah,
I've got this image of Martin in my mind, Dalton.
Yeah,
and more. I mean, the 70 to me, Martin is a shifty, nimble little bastard. I think his 70 is Dex.
Okay. See, I was kind of thinking to leave his in like either average, probably average, just because like I don't know, he knows how to work the equipment, and like that's a
But
very
like he's street smart,
right. But at the same time, like he's not the best at connecting dots and stuff. So like if int is more like a D&D like wisdom, since like appearance is worse, I think his int will probably be one of the 50s. And yeah, Dan, like you were saying, his dex would probably be.
I just imagine him as like the shifty little, he's just hiding in the shadows. He's like a little gremlin,
a little weaselly.
Yeah. Well, that also might be handy in putting together the equipment. Like you have good manual.
Yeah, like good like finger,
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if he had sleight of hand.
Yeah.
Probably not going to be very strong, though.
Yeah. Well, his power will probably be one of the 50s. Then so size, bigger number and size means bigger, like taller and stuff, right?
Yeah, you're.
Yes.
So actually, if you look at page 37, there's good breakdowns of what the numbers mean when it comes to your scores. So when we're talking about size, 1 is a baby, 1 to 12 pounds. 15 is a child or maybe a small person, about 33 pounds. 65 is an average human, makes you about 170. 80 would put you at 240, so you are just either obese or built like a linebacker. And then anything over that is you're not really
Giant.
human anymore. Yeah, or 90, 100 means you're like Andre the Giant. Big. LeBron James, Yao Ming, these sort of, kind of almost superhumanly large people.
Yeah.
Anything over that, you're like a farm animal.
Yeah, you're like a beast of burden.
You are
Yeah, they do say that the heaviest human recorded is 1,400 pounds.
How is that possible?
I don't know, but that's 180.
Okay.
So, like I said, anything over 100, you are largely a farm animal or some sort of machine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I filled out the rest.
Or a monster.
A monster.
Yeah. I filled out the rest of my stats. I gave strength average. Like, he's got to lift some equipment and stuff, but like he's not going to be any stronger or weaker than the average person. I gave him like a little bump in con because he has to deal with like some electric shocks probably. Like he's dealing with electrical equipment. He might have gotten jolted a few times. Like he's built up a resistance to that maybe. But average on the rest of stuff.
Perfect.
Well, anybody else want to tell us about what they're thinking, their ideas so far?
I'd love to, if you guys don't mind.
Go for it, Dan.
Go for it.
So I was going through all the different occupations, and I saw one that said writer, and it specifically mentioned writers that do ad copy make a lower middle class income. And
It doesn't sound like you at all. You're not projecting anything, right?
Wait, I am in my day job. I write ad copy. Huh. So I'm making myself, and I'm going to play myself in Call of Cthulhu. And yeah, we're just going to really, really, really hope that I don't die. So basically, I'm picking my skills. I've already set my my stats. If you guys want to know what my stats are,
Hell yeah.
I did the quick fire method. So my who wants to take a guess at what I put my 80 at?
Size.
Yeah, all right. Ashley got it. Yeah, there you go.
You really are. You're actually just being you. Okay, awesome.
I had it at 70, right? I had it at 70.
Yeah.
And then Justin was like, "Oh, like 80 is like someone who's like 240 pounds." I'm like 340 pounds. I don't look like I'm 340 pounds, but I'm a big motherfucker. And I was like, all right, well, I guess I'm like 80 then. So that's my highest stat. All right. Who wants to guess what my 40 is?
Dex.
Dexterity?
Dex.
No, I don't want to guess that.
Yep. I'm clumsy. I am very horrible with finger dexterity. Very, very often I ask my wife to like do small little nimble tasks for me because I have very, very, very large sausage hooks. Mm-hmm. So I made strength 60, because I'm a little bit above average strength. Like I'm pretty big guy, I'm strong.
Yeah.
Con 50, honestly, if I'm really trying to role play this, I should make like con 20 because like I am like always sick. Dex 40. I made my int 60. I feel like I've got like a good, head on my shoulders. Mm-hmm. I made my power 50 just because, I don't know, like I'm not like this super inspired person. Like I just like I get inspired by like the most basic of motivations, like, you know, money. Like, all right, that's pretty, you know, whatever. Appearance 50. You know, I'm an average looking guy, and then I made my my education 70. So, because I feel, I mean, I'm a
college educated.
I am college educated. I did go get my master's for a little bit, even though I dropped out. And also, like, the streets, you know, they said, like, part of it was, like, you know, like, the being educated by life, you know? So, I'm trying to, like, set my skills right now, though. So in Writer, it says you get, like, fast talk, library use, English, like, one other language of choice.
So, before we go into all the skills and stuff, can we actually come back to that after we finish, like,
of
all
course.
the characteristics?
Everyone else's. Yeah,
Yes.
of course.
Can I just say something for like any you know, major like Warner Brothers or anybody like that, you know, any studios that may be watching, like how dope it would be to have a horror movie adaptation of Call of Cthulhu where everybody in the game plays themselves and then themselves, and eventually everybody starts dying in the game and they actually die in real life.
Ooh, that'd be cool.
That'd be cool.
I would not make it very far.
Me neither.
Yeah, we'll see how far I make it.
They accidentally make this pact at the beginning where they have to play the game as themselves, and that's what happens. They die.
Real quick, Spencer, what year does this take place? Like 1923?
Your first, I think it's 1921 is your first adventure. Let me bring that up real quick. But
my grandma will be 3 years from being born.
Ooh.
If it's 1921. My grandmother was born in 1924.
Well, I'm looking that up. Justin, Ashley, Christian, do you want to talk about your investigator so far? Your initial thoughts? You don't have to have an occupation or anything, but maybe some of the stats that you were thinking about picking.
Can I go? I want to go. I'm going to go. So I am going to be playing Irene Whitmore. And I'm envisioning like this flapper girl. So she is really good dancer, really dexterous. So I put Dex as in my 80. As a flapper girl, she's going to be real pretty. So appearance is 70. I feel like she's a flapper girl. She's pretty in shape. I put con as 60. As far as like and then I also put intelligence as 60 because she's like got a decent head on her shoulders. She's not completely dim-witted, but not necessarily college educated. She is a woman in the 20s, so she's got a 50 in education. She's small, so size is 40. Correspondingly, strength and power are both 50. So I'm kind of going with like this pinnacle of a flapper girl in the 1920s. Mm-hmm. So
yeah.
Justin, Christian, either of you want to go?
Yeah, I'll go. I actually decided to do the point buy method because I always like making things harder for me than I need them to be. So the one of the drawbacks, I think, for those of you who are watching along, one of the drawbacks of the point buy is that it takes a little bit more time to set up your character. You need to do the math. You start out with 60 points, and you can allocate your points as you see fit across that, which allows you to have maybe a little bit more kind of across-the-board average characteristics. You know, you can have just kind of better average scores, but not good in any one. You also don't really have any bad ones either along that line. That being said, you can also be a little bit more specific, so you can do that kind of quote-unquote min-max your stats. I'm also double-checking to make sure I didn't super lowball my appearance, but yeah, actually, I am going to do that. I am going to have, in this example, I am going to have an appearance of 15.
Ooh.
Yes, which for those of you who don't know means I'm ugly. And the reason why I'm ugly is because I have super big scars all over half of my face because an explosion went off near me, and I am horrendously burned on half my face. Yep, that's okay. I served in the Great War when I was younger, and there was an accident.
When you were younger, World War I happened like 4 years ago.
4 years ago.
Yeah, I know. I'm only 28, man.
Okay.
Oh,
Okay.
man. Yeah, this adventure that you are first guys starting out, which is Edge of Darkness, takes place in 1923. So,
You sure your name's not Harvey Dent?
Yeah, well, no, it's Leo Quinn. Originally from Armagh, Ireland, born there. Actually, that would make me a little bit older. Whatever. Now lives in Hell's Kitchen. My parents came over when the as the War for Independence was happening. They left Armagh because they were Catholic. And for those of you who do not know a lot about Ireland's geography and history, Armagh, Ireland is what is in currently Northern Ireland. So if you were Catholic, you would have had to have fled around 1885, which is when the referendum to make that decision happened. The divide actually didn't happen until very recently. The partition itself didn't happen until very recently. But yeah, so I am going to have an appearance of 15. That's my first score. So you take 460 and subtract out 15. The nice thing about that is it gives me lots of points.
For other things.
For other things, like strength and con, which is how I was able to survive such a horrific accident. I have very high con. So I decided to give myself another 80 on that one.
all right.
Yeah.
That's nice.
Yes. I also have a strength of, 70. Sounds good to me on that one.
Woo!
Minus 70. And Dex will also take another 70 there. Because, like I said, I went to go fight. Kind of a decent-sized guy. So I'm going to give myself a 60 on that. It's a little bit bigger than average, but not huge. Right. And also give myself a 70.
These are good stats.
Well, until
taking that hit to being pretty is made room for others.
we'll have to cover him
70.
with a sheet whenever we interact with a child.
Yeah, I was about to say, hopefully you don't have to, go into any city.
Oh, actually, that's funny. He lives in Hell's Kitchen.
Yeah, he said he lives in Hell's Kitchen.
Oh, no.
He lives in Hell's Kitchen. Well, we're taking the background of currently, and we're gonna get into this point by a little bit, because our skills are gonna be a little bit. He's a booze runner.
Ooh.
He's a businessman.
He's a businessman.
He's a businessman. Justin, I have an important question.
Yes.
Is his name Leo space Quinn or Lee space O'Quinn?
Leo is short for Leonard.
Okay.
Leo is actually one of the most common names when this character would have been born in America. And Quinn is one of the most popular last names in Armagh around 1885.
Oh.
He's a smith.
No, because it's not like Murray or something like that. It wasn't even one of the most popular names in Ireland.
Okay.
So Murray and Hughes were some of the most popular names in Ireland at the time.
And probably Keith.
Yeah, Keith O'Keefe. There are others. You can Google search it.
Yeah. Well, super cool.
Yeah, and then he is going to have a 50 int, he's actually going to have a 45 int. Not super smart off the bat, but what he was able to work in the quartermaster department and get his education up to 50, and can do a little bit of accounting, which helps with his business savvy.
It's business.
It's a business.
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 All right.
It's just business.
And I'm double checking all my math on that to make sure.
No worries. But that's all your stats, right?
That's the stats. That's all 460 of my point buy. So I'm glad we could help people understand where really taking a hit in your stats and not doing the quickfire method can
boost.
Boost other things.
Yeah. Christian, what have you kind of put together so far, if you don't mind us asking? Me asking. I'm asking.
Hey guys, right, I'm really sorry. I gotta run real quick. I'll be back in like 30 seconds. Sorry.
Okay, see you in a second.
Only if you're asking.
I'm not asking.
I guess.
I mean, if you were, then I wouldn't care to share. But, so my investigator is nobody really knows if his name is indeed Butcher Blevins, but he is called Butcher Blevins, and he's a butcher. By day, but by night, he is a smuggler. Working out of the cold storage and the prep area in the back of his shop. He smuggles goods, paraphernalia for gangs, and is knowledgeable, or does well with his street smarts. And even deals with a little bit of the mysteries of the unknown, of the other worlds for the SEU. So, I kind of wanted to put this a little bit higher, but not super flexible with how we're doing this. So with the quickfire, but so the intelligence for Butcher Blevins is 60. So definitely has some experience working, as I mentioned, with customers on the storefront, but also and behind the scenes and making deals, and not exactly understanding what he may be dealing with and the goods that he's smuggling, but is knowledgeable in what's going on there, at least. He's a chunky, strong boy. With an 80 in strength, and 70 in size, rather large and in charge. Having to haul these, the carcasses of larger animals, pigs and things like that, having to chop them. He prefers an axe or a cleaver. So I guess cleaver would be more so a knife, but
a large knife.
Very large knife.
So the his power and appearance are rather low, somewhat unsightly at 40 appearance, and power as 50 there. He's more brawn than brains, but Constitution is set as a 60 as well. Wanted to have that a little bit higher to kind of echo that his strength and I guess vitality. But because he is bigger, his dex is 50, so a little bit on the lower side there. It's not as nimble when you're a big boy. So And education is at 50 as well, so a little bit less educated than street smarts, but roughly the same there. Nothing too crazy.
Yeah.
No genius here, so.
Perfect. And also, Christian, if you ever, because I know you said point buy isn't as flexible, or sorry, not point buy. The quickfire isn't as flexible and stuff like that. If you want to do point buy later on or anything like that, feel free to do so.
I'm not getting too attached to this character. I want to make it fun and cool, a cool character, but I'm not getting too attached to it. So, we'll
see how it goes.
A little bit of everything here.
Spencer,
try it out.
You mentioned 3 ways to do these stats. We went over 2, quickfire and point buy. I'm guessing there's like a third, like rolling dice version.
There is. So, sorry, let me get back to that page. I was looking at the what do the numbers mean page. But normally when you make these attributes and stuff like that, you, for example, for strength, you would roll 3d6 and multiply that result by 5. Then you go to con. Once again, 3d6 multiplied by 5. And so on and so forth as you go through each of these. Size is a little different. It's 2d6 plus 6 and multiply by 5. So basically, they take one of those 3d6s and just give you the max, and then just have you roll 2d6s instead. Dex is the 3d6, and then multiply by 5. Appearance, 3d6 multiplied by 5. Intelligence, once again, just like the size, it gives you one of those 3 dice, just max stat. So it's 2d6 plus 6 times 5. Then power, 3d6 times 5. Education, once again, 2d6 plus 6 times 5, and so on and so forth. So a lot of the other stats, that's like, I guess the main way you would do it, but like Call of Cthulhu makes it very clear that all 3 are perfectly valid ways to make a character. And I think it's really good that they included the quickfire in the starter set, because I think we've been mentioning, like before, this is a horror game, and characters die pretty quickly. I can tell the full story later, but included are 3 books in the starter set. And the first book they include is actually a solo adventure, kind of like a choose-your-own-adventure book that kind of walks you through how to play the game. And while you do that, you get to kind of like make rolls and generate a character and stuff like that. In that game, my character, he was figuring out stuff. He's like moving about and stuff like that. Well, unfortunately, he fell off a cliff, and he died. Like, nothing mythical, nothing Cthulhu-esque, just fell off a cliff and died. And that was just like, I was probably 75% of the way through the adventure, and he just did that. Just failed a couple checks, bled out, and died. And so that's kind of like the thing in Call of Cthulhu. And what's kind of exciting is that your characters might not survive 1 or 2 sessions. Surviving is actually very rare, but very rewarding. So, but with that, we can kind of go into, in the starter set, right after going through characteristics and assigning those point values, it actually talks about the half and fifth characteristic values that we can talk about real quick. So, as you notice, and as you're looking on Marvin Martin's character sheet right now, you can see that next to each of the stats, like 50, like strength.
Dan, we can
50.
hear you click-clacking away. It's making it a little difficult to hear Spencer.
Oh, really? I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Just wanted to give you a heads up.
So strength, as you can see, there's a 50, a 25, and then a 10. And what that means is that as you are making these rolls, it's going to be on a 1 to 100, right? So you're going to have the percentile dice that you use. So percentile dice is going to be here. I have them right here. Percentile dice are going to be one that has like the basically the different, like the 30s, 40, all that kind of good stuff on it. And then the second dice is just the single numbers by itself, but it goes from 0 to 9. And what you're dealing with these dice is you're using them to make these different rolls. And sometimes just by making the base roll isn't enough. Sometimes you have to make a hard check, which is, let's take, like say I'm having Marvin make a strength check, but it's a hard check. So instead of rolling against his normal 50 strength, he's gonna roll a 25. But wait. what does this all mean? How does this work out? So essentially, if Dalton right now rolls a D100,
Okay.
are you rolling it right now?
I rolled a 25.
25. Well,
That's
so
a good
what
check,
that means
actually.
is, what's that?
I said that's a good check.
That is a good check. So how it works is that you're trying to roll at your stat or under. So think about it like this. Dalton has his strength right in the middle. So he has a 50-50 chance on a normal strength check to hit 50 or below. If I was asking for him to make a hard check and he rolled 25, he passed it because he hit 25 or below. He would have only had a fourth of a chance to hit, but he would have made that. However, if it was an extreme strength check, like say a normal strength check would just be like, oh, the door is like locked, so you have to like kick it down. A hard strength check would be like, it's not only locked, but it's like barred on the other side. So, and then an extreme strength check would be like, it's a metal door and it's sealed shut, right? Like you would have to do something really hard to kind of to kind of get that door open. So while if it was just the barred door, he would have made his hard strength check at a half of his regular strength just fine. But if it was an extreme check like that metal door, he has to make it at 1/5 of his normal roll. So you can see that for each stat, that's what each of these are. There's half stats and fifth stats. So for example, his dexterity, 70 normal, which means he would just, if he had to make a dexterity roll, he just has to roll 70 or under. He has a 70% chance to make that roll. His half value for that is 35, meaning he only has a 35% chance if it's a hard dexterity check. Or an extreme success, which is 1/5 of his 70, is only a 14% chance to do it. So as you can see, having those are kind of like the split values that Call of Cthulhu uses for a lot of different things. Not only just checks, but also when we get to combat and stuff like that. So that's kind of like what each of those numbers means. The good news is this form fillable form fills it out for you already. But if you're at home and you have the starter set, all the way in the back of book 2, you have this nifty little graph that takes all of the values from 1 to 100 and shows you their half stats and their 1/5 stats. So it makes it really easy to like, oh, I don't know what this is. You can just look at the chart, boom, boom. Oh, here's my extreme check value for this and stuff like that. So
You have
that's
one
kind of the half.
question.
Yeah, go ahead, Ash.
You may have mentioned this, but if you equal your stat, have you passed it, or do you have to strictly be under it?
You pass it. As
Okay.
long as you hit that number, you're good.
Awesome. Thank you.
No problem. Good question.
Most
So, yeah.
most systems I've come across do like if you equal the number, it's a pass. And I always use the phrase "a meet beats" as like my brain remembers that meeting the number beats the check and like succeeds on the check. I like rhymes.
Yeah, meat Pete. Well, let's move on to secondary attributes. Let's kind of like go into this because this is the good news is with these secondary attributes, such as your damage bonus and build, your HP, your move rate, and your sanity points. This is all. This you don't have to make any characteristics or point by or anything like that. You just take the stats you already have and kind of apply it to these things. So as you can see, Dalton's stuff is already kind of filling out, but just to kind of go over, damage bonus and build. This is going to come up if you're using melee weapons. So maybe if you're using like a handgun, it's never going to come up, but it's still kind of good to know just in case this thing happens. So, essentially, damage bonus in your build is how much extra damage your investigator inflicts when making a successful close combat melee attack. Build is your combined strength, size, and strength when making a fighting maneuver. Yes. So basically, to get your damage bonus and build, just add your strength and your size characteristics together. And then if you're in the starter set, you go to page 8, and there is a helpful little table that shows you the different stats. I'll read them out right now. So everybody, go ahead and add your strength and your size together. if your strength and size combined is between 2 and 64, your build size is -2, and your damage bonus is actually -2. It just means you have a really size and in strength. You're not very strong and you're not very big.
Is your build and damage bonus going to be the same number generally, or do they differ?
No.
Okay.
It differs, and that's why I'm saying them separate, because it's going to be different when we get to, like, when it's negative, it's the same, but when we get to, like, your actual damage bonuses, then it's different. So,
Repeat how to get those values again.
Just add your strength and your size together.
And there's a range.
And then we're
Spencer's
going over the table to figure out what those numbers are, Ash.
Yep.
Okay, great.
So if your strength and size together is between 2 and 64, your build size is -2, and your damage bonus is -2. If your strength plus size is between 65 and 84, your build is a -1, and your damage bonus is also -1. If your strength plus your size is between 85 and 124, your build size is 0, and you have no bonus. Just, you're normal, you're average. You don't get anything bonus. But if your size plus your strength is between 125 and 164, your build size is 1. Oh, that's you, Dan. And you get plus 1d4 whenever you make a physical attack to your damage.
Yeah.
Which is really nice. And if any extreme cases where your size plus your strength is between 165 and 204, your build size is 2, and you get a plus d6 of extra damage when you make a melee, or when you hit with a melee attack. So, pretty significant. So, that's why it's different. If you're in the negatives, it just is like a minus, but like if you're in the positives, like a build size 1 or 2, it's different d4s of damage that you get to do. So, that's like damage bonuses and build, but that's only going to affect you if you are meleeing. So, hit points. So, as you can see, Dalton's character Marvin already has his hit points filled out, but you figure out your hit points by adding together your size and your constitution, then dividing by 10 and rounding down to the nearest whole number. So as you can see, Dalton's size and constitution together
is 110.
Yes. Divide that by 10
is 11.
Hooray!
Wow.
Which is actually good health. That's good health. So that's one of the major differences between like D&D and Call of Cthulhu. 11 health is good. You're if you have anything above 10, that's a good amount of health. When we start getting to damage in combat, you realize, that's not a lot compared to D&D. In D&D, I have 60 points of health or something like that, and that's not how it works in Call of Cthulhu. So
and keep in mind, another thing to notice, or something to notice, the lack of like experience or level on this character sheet. That's nowhere to be found.
Yep.
So this number isn't really ever gonna go up. This is my hit points for however long this character gets to stay alive, pretty much.
Yeah.
That's actually something I like about it, though, because that's realistic.
Yeah.
Like, I am not gonna get hardier as a human being by getting more experience. Like, a bullet's gonna kill me the same way.
Mm-hmm.
Or falling off a cliff.
Doesn't matter how many hours of class you go to.
Exactly.
I mean, if you
Scar
gain
tissue.
more experience eating, then you get bigger in size, I guess.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah, I mean, but it doesn't make you like
Taller.
more bulletproof.
Yeah, no, not really.
Every time I get shot, I build up more immunity to bullets.
One hot
you-
dog is
wait,
not
if
like
you-
less damage from a bullet.
I mean, theoretically, the 1,400-pound person, I imagine, had so much fat that, maybe they could have,
Stop bullets.
So, I mean, maybe there's, a certain threshold that you do kind of become not bulletproof, but bullet resistant.
Yeah.
While true,
But you
could
take
still
big
just shoot him in the
debuffs
head.
everywhere else in your life.
What
Big
size
debuffs.
is that in Call of Cthulhu? Is that just like amorphous blob size at that point? Like what classification?
I want to play that game.
1,400 pounds.
Can I dump all of my skills
Oh, it's in there.
with the size?
The 1,400 pound is in there in the table. So you really want to do that, and your like size is huge, and you have like a 15 and everything else. Go for it.
How do you move?
do it.
You know, like you can't.
Well, that's
move around.
but so that is handled. There is a move score. I'm not sure how high your move score would be if you were 1,400 pounds.
Yeah. Well, funny you mentioned that. In the quickfire rules, your movement rate is 8. So go ahead and just put an 8 in that value for right now. And
Never changes.
no.
So
I think
my
what
sheet auto like filled it
Filled
to
in?
7.
Oh, okay. Well, then you can keep that then.
All right,
Yeah,
that makes
yeah.
sense.
I can read the rules out. It's basically in the quick fire it just says put it at 8, but it says if both dex and strength are less than size, movement is 7. If either strength or dex is equal to or greater than size, if all three are equal, or if all three are equal, your movement is 8. And then if your strength and dex are greater than your size, your movement is 9.
Oh, yeah, my movement's 9.
So there we go.
mine-
I have 9 movement as well.
So there we
mine's
go.
7.
Yeah, speaking of like numbers that don't change versus do change, I think most of the character progression comes into play when we get to like the big list of
Skills.
skills. Like we
Oh,
can
yeah.
we can train and get better at those over time, but like our like strength, con, dex, those are pretty static once we decide to make character creation.
Yep. So, sanity points. So that is equal to your investigator's power level or power value. Sorry.
Oof.
So, just go ahead and put that there, and we're gonna get into sanity more when we get into the sanity rules. So
Should I
let's
give
just-
myself a debuff for my mental illnesses?
No, no, Dan, no. That's factored in. And your magic points, your NP, are equal to 1/5 of your power. So,
Okay.
yeah.
My
looks like
character
we're-
doesn't even believe in magic. I have 14 magic points.
Yeah, in my like backstory, it says arcane tomes and spells. I'm just gonna put LOL what?
Hello, what? And the last basic characteristic is gonna be your luck. Sorry, luck.
Lut. What is
Every-
that?
So just like what we did for the other characteristics when we were reading out the rolling rolls, how you get your luck is you roll 3d6 and you multiply that result by 5. So can everybody roll 3d6 for me and multiply that by 5?
Dice roller. Hey Google, what's up? 3.
Anybody's in the roll 20 right now.
Yeah, we can do it in roll 20.
Oh my god.
There we go. Those are good numbers
It's
for me.
3d6 plus what, Spencer?
3d6 multiplied by 5.
Ah.
Okay, so I rolled a total of 10, so my
Yep.
luck would be 50.
Mm-hmm.
I'll
Sure
take
would.
that. That's like a base.
Half.
That's like a base luck, you know.
Yeah.
I roll poopy. I have a luck of 35, but I guess that makes sense because a gas tank blew up in my face. Not very lucky.
I rolled
Not very-
pretty
You're
good.
lucky to be alive. That's a mindset issue, man.
Maybe that's where all your luck went. That's why it's
Yeah,
low
that's
now.
that's where I used up
Yep.
all my luck.
I rolled a
Yeah.
6, 4, and a 6, so my starting luck is 80. So I've got plenty of Lady Luck smiled upon Marvin Martin.
So, I'm gonna go over luck rules real quick, and then let's take a quick break and come back and start talking about occupation and skills. Does that sound good, everyone?
Spencer, should we do sanity while we're up doing luck? Or is that something we want to do later?
I figure we can kind of do that later. We're
Okay.
kind of getting there. I don't know. Does everybody want to do sanity as
No,
well?
if it makes sense to do it later, then we can just do it later.
Yeah.
Whatever you want to do, GM.
All right. I am keeper.
Keeper.
Thank you. Keeper. of
Whatever you want to
arcane
do,
lore.
keeper.
Lore keeper. He keeps the lore.
I keep.
Whatever you want to do, babe.
You share that lore.
Thank you. I also accept the title of Babe. So
Yeah. I'm calling
All
you
right.
Babe for this campaign from now on.
oh no. There's
What do
no
I need
such
to roll, babe?
penalty dice. Penalty dice, penalty dice, penalty dice.
Oh, give me more penalties, babe.
No.
Penalty me, babe.
Okay.
Started this, Spencer.
So luck.
Started this.
Luck, real quick. Luck is essentially like anything that it's like falls outside of like your normal characteristics, and it just is just happenstance, right? That's where luck comes into play. Let's say you're running from something and you are in the city, or you hop into a car that you've never been in before. It's not your car. You hop into a car and you're like, I want to drive this car and get out of here. For example, I'd be like, okay, make a luck roll to see if the keys are in the car right now. That's where the luck comes into place. Works exactly like all the other skills. You know, like since Marvin over here has an 80, he just has to roll an 80 or less, and he's got the keys in the car. He's good. So, you know, for Justin's character, what's your luck score again?
Oh, 35. I can't count on anything. I got to be planning.
Yeah. So,
Which actually makes sense for the character.
yeah. So this is a fun little thing where it's like, you know, like, hey, it's if you're not sure, you can kind of pull this out and just be like, all right, let's see what the luck has if Lady Luck is in your favor type deal. Here's something else that I think is really cool. This is not included in the starter set. However, to everybody who's following along in the Keeper Handbook, on page 99, which is interesting. I'm surprised this is an optional rule, because it sounds like, in my experience, it sounds like most other Call of Cthulhu games use these rules, and I'm going to allow you guys to use this while we're playing, because I think this is really cool. Not only can I call upon you sometimes to make luck roll, you can spend luck. You can spend luck after you have made a skill roll to alter the result. The player can use luck points to alter the roll for a 1-for-1 basis. The points spent are deducted from your luck score. So essentially, you can't spend any luck points on luck rolls themselves. You can't spend it on damage rolls or sanity rolls, or rolls to reduce the amount of sanity points lost. But everything else you can use luck for. So it's really nice.
Regenerate?
Well, yes.
Okay.
Yes, it can. So essentially, so if you make a roll, say like I'm saying like, Marvin, make a power. No, let's see. Make an appearance check to try to see if you can get into this club that everybody else is getting into, right?
I rolled a 1.
Oh, well, you get in, no problem. that's a extreme success. That's like better than extreme success.
That's
Here we go.
Marvin walking up and just being like,
I rolled a 69.
that's literally just Marvin like walking up and being like, and they're like, oh man, I didn't know you were chill like that. Like, yo,
What's
come
up?
on in.
Yeah.
What's
I
up?
just like, I was like, yo, I'm on the radio, and then it's like, oh wow, you're on the radio.
Yo, I recognize your voice.
Yeah. No, I rolled a 69. How does that? That's a fail.
First off,
No,
nice.
that's a success.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's an
but-
instant success.
The way that it's a lot like Symborum, y'all. You want lower rolls. A critical success in this system is a 1. So on your percentage die, it would say 00, and on your regular D10, it would say 1. And that is a critical success. A critical fail is when all 3 dice read 0. Or your percentage dice reads 00, and your regular die reads 0 as well. And you are trying to get below the number that you have to make it happen. So if you had a strength roll in order to like pick up a box, a heavy box or a rock that you needed to smash in a cultist's head, it would be like, okay, you need to, roll whatever less than your strength is. And if, in my case, it's a 70, so I'd have to roll less than a 70 on my percentage die.
Yeah.
But going back to luck, Spencer wanted to make that appeal check. I rolled a
Yep.
69, which is a fail as of now.
It's a fail. But to succeed, you only need to roll a 40. So there is a 19-point difference between your 40 and the 69. So if you spend... What? Did I calculate wrong? No, sorry. 29.
Quick math.
29. I am the keeper of arcane lore.
I defined the mathematics.
Okay, babe.
Thanks, babe.
So what Marvin can do, what Dalton can do, is take 29 points out of his luck, which he has 80. He has a lot. So he can take 29 points, reduce that 80 down, and use that to make this appearance or a check to make it into a success. And that's really key because it will take 29 points out of his luck. But if this was like a really key moment where it's like, hey, like we have to get into this club, and if we don't get into this club, the cultists are going to get away and possibly murder a bunch of people or something, like that's an important check or something like that. It's really good to use on certain points, even though it's taken away from his luck. So it's really good. You can use that for even pushing it to if you want to hit a hard success or extreme success. Say you got a regular success, but you're like, oh, I really need that hard success. You can push that point value down into the hard success level too, which is really nice because say you're only like 1 or 2 points away. Oh, easy. I'm going to spend my luck for that for sure. But if you're something like 29 points, but you're just trying to get into a club and it's not really that important, it's like, I'll wait outside. I don't have to do that. So, very cool. Dan, you mentioned, how do we recover luck points? If Marvin just spent 29 out of his 80, how do we get those back? And this is definitely going to be when we get to recovery and stuff like that. Recovery happens after each... here, I'll read the exact wording, but like, it is after each... at the end of a scenario or gaming session. So whichever comes first, end of the scenario or gaming session, you can recover stuff. We'll get into how we recover and advance our skills here when we cover occupation skills. But how you recover luck points is when you are recovering at the end of a session. We all make rolls, and you roll a 1d100 just like anything else against your luck score. So, the thing that's different about this is you want to fail this roll. So, let's say that Marvin's now down to, what is that? 59? Did I get that right?
51.
51. Yes. See? I mean, I'm great at math. So anyways, say that Dalton, Marvin the character, is down to 51. You have to roll above 51 in order to increase your luck. If you make your luck score, it doesn't work. So if you roll 51 or below, you don't recover any more luck. Your luck stays as it is.
And then you recover the difference.
Well, actually, if you get above that 51, if Marvin gets above that 51, then he gets to add 1d10 of points to their luck score.
Okay.
So it's maxed out at 10 with each improvement. But it's each session. So like if you go a session without doing any luck points or anything like that, or you make a luck roll, then you can recover it at the end of the session still. So, but that's why it's good. Yeah. Sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, so it really makes sense, like Justin's character using up his luck. Like it actually like makes sense, you know. Like you got to use it for a dex check or something.
Yeah. And so that's why you can see there's a max luck points, which is on the left side of the score sheet, and then there's a kind of like current luck points because that can change, but he can slowly build it back up over time. So,
Spencer.
Yeah.
Since we touched on scenarios,
yes,
why don't we note what a scenario is for our viewers?
Yes. A scenario is basically kind of like a little adventure for every time you play. So when you sit down, you do a campaign. Sometimes, just like in D&D, you can sit down for like a 4-hour session and maybe not complete the whole thing. but like maybe it takes a couple sessions to do. Same thing with Call of Cthulhu. A scenario is a situation that involves some sort of mystery, some sort of Cthulhu mythos that the adventuring party has to deal with. And after that's complete, the scenario is over. But it might tie into other scenarios that will come up in the future. So, we're now moving into skills. So, Dalton, if you want to scroll down a little bit, as you can see, there are so many skills, so many. And if you're coming from D&D like me, and maybe a lot of us, you're looking at this, you're just like, whoa, 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 whoa. I had proficiencies, but this, what is all of this? There's so many, what do I do with all these? Here's the good thing. Call of Cthulhu, set in the 1920s, is very much like real life, and you get a ton of different skills. When they say that, like, you have an occupation, you can kind of think of it as, like, your class, but really, all of these are suggestions. Especially what we're about to go over, you can look at sample investor occupations like there is in the starter set, such as antiquarian, author, doctor of medicine. It will tell you different skills that it thinks is good to have with that occupation, but ultimately, you get to kind of create whatever character you want. Do you want them to have like a little bit of healing, but lots of like, you know, guns and stuff like that? Sounds like you were a medic in the first Great War, or in the Great War. They didn't know there was going to be a second one. Did you want to have like a lot of like? Did you want to be like a professor, but have like a bunch of like scattered knowledge of different stuff, as well as, I don't know, knowing how to shoot a gun? Sure, why not? You're part of the gun shooting club at the university you work at. You can do that too. There's a ton of different things, not all gun related, that you can do. So let's go ahead and kind of hop into it. So just like before, we're gonna assign points to different skills that we kind of have. If you guys want to look at different sample investigator occupations like I was mentioning before, you can kind of look at those as different skills that you can pick. But if you want to follow along, here's how we do here's how you pick skills with the quickfire method. So you can assign points, but you cannot add points to the Cthulhu Mythos skill first off, because that is a special skill that you will get later on. Possibly, depending on if you live long enough. Basically, what's that?
Oh, I just laughed.
Oh, good.
If
you are going to allocate the following values among 8 occupational skills. This isn't the only skills that you're going to have. This is just the first like ones you're going to assign to. So, oh, and also the credit rating. So you're determining different values for 8 different occupation skills, as well as a credit rating. So you're going to have 1 at 70%. Out of all these skills, you're going to have 1 at 70%, 2 at 60%, 3 at 50%, and 3 at 40%. Works very similar to your characteristics, where when you roll on a 100, and that determines whether or not you pass or fail with these skills. I'll reread that in a second, but before I do want to let you guys know you are also going to be picking personal interest skills. So how this works is that these are skills picked up outside of work. So you're going to be assigning those skills as occupation, but then you're going to be picking personal interest skills. I know it's a little confusing, but all it is that after you pick and assign those 9 characteristics, you're going to be increasing 4 more skills by 20% based on the base values that are there. But first off, let's talk about these different skills and everything. So go ahead and start assigning your occupation skills. 1 at 70%, 2 at 60%, 3 at 50%, and 3 at 40%, with one of those skills being your credit rating. So remember that. Remember, your credit rating is going to be your money and stuff. And in fact, I'll go. Yeah, go ahead.
So there's
Spencer, in the handbook.
Yes.
What page is that on?
Sorry, I was looking at the starter set. Let me get to. It is in the Keeper's Handbook. It is. I did not have it pulled up.
It's my bad. I had to throw a curveball there.
Yeah, I had fumbles and stuff pulled up. In the starter set, it's page 8 and 9.
Wow.
So it's 8 skills and then your credit rating, right? Not 8 skills
Correct.
including credit rating.
Yes.
Okay.
So it's 8 skills and then your credit rating as well.
I'm noticing some of these are blank on the character sheet. Is that just like a free space to describe whatever you want?
Oh, sorry, I was still looking up where the skills are.
I think so, Dalton, because like if you look, like one of them's like art or craft, right?
Yeah, like I figure that's like a space for you to say like, oh, I'm good at this kind of art or like this kind of craft or like I'm good at this kind of science. I just want to make sure.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
sorry. So page 54 in the Keeper Handbook is where the skills is at. And yes, just like you said, Dalton, you'll notice that some options are blank and open, such as language, because you can learn, it's not a general language skill. It's going to be like, if you do language other, it's going to be like Spanish or French or something like that. For fighting, you can have Brawl, which encompasses a bunch of different stuff, but also you can choose firearms and do like different types of guns other than rifles and shotguns and handguns. So science is a good one too. You can specifically be chemistry or physics, but let's kind of start going into all these different skills because there are a lot of them. So I'm not going to cover every single skill in depth. I'm just going to cover, like, just briefly talk about different ones just to cover them a little bit. It's definitely something to kind of go through on your own time and just kind of like read through it more in depth if you have any questions about it, because some of these are confusing. Like I'm going to talk about like charm, persuasion, fast talk, and how each of those are kind of different. So while everybody's picking their occupation skills, I'm just going to go ahead and read through. But before I do, did anybody need me to repeat those percentages again, or is everybody good with that, with what they need to assign?
I'm good with the occupation skills. I just want to double check on so there's 4 personal skills we pick after. And
yes,
that
which
is
I will. Yeah.
We pick. I think it's important to be clear on these so like we know the whole aspect of it. Those are 4 skills that will be adding 22, not like setting at 20, right?
Yes. So along each of those skills down on the character sheet, such as like if we look at accounting at the top, you'll notice just to the right of it, it says 5%. That means if you didn't choose it as an occupation skill or anything like that, if you're untrained and you just try to do some sort of accounting skill check, you're going to have a 5% chance of doing it just by yourself, just doing it. Whereas like anthropology, the average person has a 1% chance if you're not training it. If you're not trained in any anthropology, you have a 1% chance of doing that. So essentially, what you're doing is when you're going through these skills and choosing your occupation skills and assigning the 70, the 60, the 50, the 40, you're basically changing your roles to be from that normal untrained percentage to that new trained percentage. Mm-hmm. And when you choose the 4 personal interest skills, you're not changing the percentage there. Instead, the percentage that is already there, you're adding 20% to, because it's like you just have a personal interest in it. You weren't formally trained in it necessarily. Maybe you did get a little bit of training, but you were incomplete or something like that. But like if you took that personal interest skill in accounting, that would raise it from 5% to 25%. If you took it in anthropology, it'd raise it from a 1% to a 21%.
Okay.
And so on and so forth as you're kind of going through these.
And you can't double pick, right? Like I can't have archaeology as my occupational skill and a personal interest skill. Right?
Correct.
They need to be separate.
They have to be separate.
Okay.
Yes.
Great.
Mm-hmm.
So in this world, we can't enjoy our jobs.
No.
Okay.
Nope. Not at all.
It's a very realistic setting.
I don't know. In my personal real life setting, I have to take a personal interest in my occupation outside of work. Those two have to overlap.
Interesting. That sounds nice.
That sounds nice. You'll have to tell us more about what that's like.
So those of you who are following along, though, specifically with if you had to get only the Lore Keeper's Handbook, personal interest skill points, that is covered on page 31, where it is your int times 2. Personal interest can be found on page 36. And your occupational skills is found on page 32, and occupational skills are also found on page 36.
Is that the investigator?
That's the
handbook?
investigator handbook.
Okay,
which one is this one? No, this is the keeper handbook.
That is the keeper? Oh.
Spencer, you want to start going over what the skills mean? And I don't know, as you're going over them, maybe like if anybody thinks that they want to take that as their job skill, they could like chime in and be like, "Oh yeah, I think that's a thing my character would pick." We could do that.
Yeah. Sounds good with me. So first up, like we were talking before, we have accounting at the top, which is just understanding accounting procedures, kind of financial functioning of a business. Anthropology is understanding like a culture's way of life through observation. Appraise is estimating the value of a particular item. Archaeology is dating and identification of artifacts from past cultures.
Yeah, I
Is that
think
different from appraise?
Appraisal is determining the value of an object.
Yes.
So if you were to look at a diamond, right, you know, the 4 C's, right? So that's a part of an appraisal process. You're looking for color, cut, clarity, and... Carat. Thank you. Yeah. So, you know, the weight of the diamond factors into its value. How clear it is factors into its value. At this time, cut would have been something that was kind of subjective. Cut doesn't work, used to not work the way it does now with kind of standard cuts. Gem cutting was more of an art around this time, where the gem cutter kind of cut it in a way that would work with the stone's natural formation to best highlight its features. So cut would kind of feed into clarity and how shiny it made the gem itself. Mm-hmm. But yeah. And then you'd be like, oh, okay, this is worth, I don't know, whatever, X dollars. Because I appraised it.
I think I'm taking archaeology as a hobby skill.
Ooh.
As a kid, I was always like into like stuff like that.
Yeah.
I don't know.
On the character sheet, does the book say like, do we still put the check mark next to it for both of them, or do only like...
You don't put a check mark right now. So the check mark, what you do for that. So as you're kind of going through, see how there's the main column, the left, middle, right, just like you would have for the stats before. I would put your new percentage in at the top there.
Okay.
So, for example, if Dan's taking archaeology, but as a personal interest, he would change that 1% to a 21% right there. And then fill in the half value and the 1/5, the fifth value as well for that.
But this like check mark column is a separate thing.
The check is a separate thing.
Cool.
I can go over that briefly real quick, though. Essentially, the check mark, if you complete a skill check in something while doing a session, basically, if you successfully do it without pushing the roll, or actually, no, sorry, if you just successfully do a check mark without spending luck points, that's what it is. Put a check mark next to that skill. Say, Dan's, found an object and was like, I want to date what this is. Rolls a successful archaeology. Boom. He would check mark that right there. And that's not going to be important until we finish the game session. Mm-hmm. Because when we're recovering our luck and all of that at the end of the session, we also get to increase our skills.
Okay. And that's where the improvement comes in.
Yes. So whatever you had a check mark for, where you didn't spend luck for, but you just had a successful check for, that's when it's the same rule applies. You make that same check again, hoping to fail it. And if you fail it, you get to possibly increase it by 1d10. And so as you may notice that if you have a really high skill in something, it's harder to increase that skill value because in the starter set, as they say, the more you know about something, the harder it is to learn anything new or to get better at it.
Okay.
So you're hoping to fail those improvement checks to increase those skill levels.
Okay. Cool.
So that factors into, like we were saying before, there's no experience, but you can possibly increase your skills.
That makes
And
sense.
do all of that.
Cool.
Yeah.
So I was just asking to make sure I don't just go willy-nilly like checking boxes. Because I used to like D&D where like you check the box, like that's proficiency.
That's what I have.
But
Yep.
here it's
not
a separate
like
thing.
that.
Cool.
I have a question on how we determine. Do we add from our skill points that we get based on our education and int? Do we add those to the base success, or is it like just, so for example, on accounting,
Yes.
it starts at 5. If I want to make that 10, is that 10 skill points or is that only 5 skill points?
Ooh, wait, how are you increasing how are you determining these skills?
So
I don't think
I am saying that accounting, as a businessman, quote
Yes.
unquote, I know how to work my books.
Uh-huh.
Accounting comes at a base 5% success rate.
Yes.
I would like to increase this to a 10% success rate.
Okay.
I'm not a bookie, but I know how to review them.
Yeah.
Would that be 5 skill points? Because your occupational skills, if you're doing the point buy method,
Point by.
is
Yes.
based on your education score. And likewise, your interest skill points are based on your int times 2. Yeah. So is that if I make it a 10% success rate for accounting, is that 5 points or is that 10 points to make it a total 10% success rate?
If I'm going to be completely honest, Justin, I only covered the quickfire method for skills. So
okay.
you're going to know more than me on this.
Alrighty.
I only know how to assign the percentage points and stuff like that. So
Okay. I'll keep reading.
Are you what page are you on right now?
So this is all kind of covered under page 31 and 32. So page 31 underneath int, where you would normally roll the 2d6 plus 6 and multiply by 5. Your personal interest skill points are determined by multiplying your int times 2 and allotted to the new investigator under your personal interests. Yeah. So, and then education is your total skill points are just your education score.
All right.
Yeah, might just have to read ahead on that. I'm trying to think like based on ratios. Like the quick fire, we have 80 total points of like personal interest skills to like technically, since we get plus 20 in 4 different things.
Oh, that makes sense. That's yeah. That makes sense.
Yeah. So it would probably be adding on top of the base if you're doing like a personal interest in it.
Yep. Gotcha. So it probably works the same for education.
Yeah.
All right.
So arts
Moving
and
on.
crafts.
Yeah. Well, next up on the skills is arts and crafts, which is also one of those like just open specialization ones, as you can see. When I made my character, I did a private eye. And so his arts and craft was actually specifically photography. Because if you imagine kind of a private eye being back then, it's kind of good to be able to like take photos of a crime scene or evidence and such. So having a skill in that is pretty good. So arts and crafts, you may think like painting or singing, but it can be more than just that, which is pretty
Do
good.
they have the arts and crafts like listed out somewhere?
I'm sure they do.
We taking an arts and crafts skill in dance
That makes
Yeah,
sense.
because I'll probably be
because I'm a
doing one.
flapper.
Right, that makes sense. I figured I'd do one in writing. If it's not listed, that's totally fine. I mean, I figure it's just one of those things we play out. I mean, it'll come up anyway, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd have to look more. I'm usually it's not listed in the starter set.
I'm not
So-
seeing like a writing skill like otherwise. I would assume that would fall under arts and crafts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But anyways, so there is Charm is up next. So this is going to
also be taking charm.
Ooh, there we go. So this is going to be interesting because, like I said, there's several different things that you think of, like charm, fast talk, persuade. You're like, oh, those sound like in D&D that would all be the same, like persuasion skill check, right? But this is a little different. So charm specifically takes many forms, including physical attraction, seduction, flattery, or warmth of personality. So it's kind of more so like an initial kind of attraction to a person type deal and everything. Just to cover the other ones I was just talking about, not to skip down too much, but fast talk, that's specifically limited to verbal trickery, deception, and misdirection, such as bamboozling a bouncer to let you inside a club. So that's what fast talk kind of does. And then persuade, very similar but different. Convince a person about a particular idea, concept, or belief through reasoned argument, debate, and discussion. And it takes at least a half an hour to do. So, as you can see, very different compared to the other skills, but all kind of like have similar kind of outcomes, just in different ways. So, there's climb, which is climbing trees, walls, and all that stuff. Your credit rating, which we kind of went over before, which is 0 penniless, 1 to 9 poor, 10 to 49 average, 50 to 89 wealthy, 90 to 98 rich, and 99 super rich. So, Cthulhu Mythos, which is only going to be granted by me if you do something. So, or just experiencing the world. Disguise is disguising yourself. Dodge is interesting because it's actually half of your regular dex value.
That the
And
default
that's gonna-
is half dex.
What's that?
The default is half dex. Like we could skill
Yeah.
into it if we wanted to.
Yes, correct. Yep. I believe so. Yeah, I don't see any rules that say not to. I'm pretty sure you can still skill into it. But anyways, that's just the beginning. That's like what it's going to be more important when we get to combat and everything. So, drive auto, which is driving cars. Electrical repair, which is like specifically anything with electricity that needs repair. You do that.
I'm definitely putting my 60 probably, or one of my 60s into electrical repair. That makes a lot of sense to me.
We already covered fast talk, but we have fighting, which like we said, the fighting brawl skill is like knives and clubs, as well as your fists, martial arts, sword, axe, spear, or whip. So the brawl fighting skill covers like a wide range of different stuff. And like we said, there's like a bunch of different stuff, including firearms, which covers all sorts of different stuff, but you can specialization in like handguns, rifles, shotguns, bows, or crossbows. So, first aid, we can get more into this later because first aid and medicine are going to be definitely important when it comes to like healing up and stuff like that. And I'll cover the specific rules when we get to that, but think of first aid as immediate care for when somebody's hurt. And medicine as like kind of like longer term care to fix them up. So both are important, just for different ways. We have history, which is pretty self-explanatory, recalling historical detail. Intimidation, which is like, using threats to compel someone to do something. Jumping. We covered language, so you have your own language as well as like another language that you can specialize in. Law, which is just knowing like legal procedure. If you do like a private eye, you'd probably know like law, just like legal procedure to know how to get through stuff. Yeah. Damn.
So hey, quick question. So one of my occupation skills says take like English, right? Which would be language own. But in the parentheses, it's actually the only one that's like unique there. It says it's based on education. So if my education is 70, like if it's kind of like a make your own, like you can kind of create your own, right?
Yeah.
Do I have to drop a skill point into English if I'm just going to naturally have a 70 from being educated?
No, you don't have to drop anything into it.
Sweet. Yeah. Okay. That works.
You know English.
Yeah, you
Yeah,
can just pick
yeah.
something else. Like you could maybe if you want to do like French, or if you just want to do a whole other thing that makes sense for a writer.
Yeah, and I actually was looking into, and it looks like reading is not reading, writing. Anything non-literary is actually covered in art, but writing, anything literary, is covered in the language. So, yeah.
So there we go.
Mm-hmm.
Next up, we have library use, which at first glance appears to be like, why would I ever use library use? What particular use could that happen? But it specifically is for finding a piece of information, such as a certain book, newspaper, reference in a library, or collection of documents. And here's the important thing. This takes place in the 1920s, where the internet wasn't around. How'd you find out information? You went down to the local library. So finding newspaper clippings, investigating any sort of event, or like finding out something like that. Maybe you're in you just found a dusty bookcase and you're like trying to find a specific book of some sort to help you out in a situation. That's where this is going to come in handy. So while it seems like it's one of the weakest skills, this is real life. You know, knowledge is power. You have listen, which is just kind of like your overall hearing. But it's going to be interesting when we're covering listen compared to spot hidden, because spot hidden is something I would most closely compare to perception, whereas listening is specifically hearing something. But we'll get to that in just a second. Locksmith, which is, you know, you can kind of imagine what that's kind of all about, which is like locks and unlocking stuff. Mechanical repair. So opposite, not necessarily opposite, but similar to electrical repair, whereas electrical is something that deals with electricity. Mechanical is like everything that doesn't, something that has to do like physics and stuff like that. So medicine, I kind of covered that with like first aid and medicine, how medicine is like longer healthcare and stuff like that, but we'll cover that more when we talk about healing. Natural world, which represents the traditional unscientific knowledge and personal observation of farmers, fishermen, inspired amateurs, and hobbyists. Navigate, which is taking the correct path to a destination. Occult, recognize occult paraphernalia, words, and concepts. Operating heavy machinery, such as driving and operating a train, steam engine, bulldozer, or other large-scale land machine. I think tanks count as that too.
That's under occult?
No, that was operate heavy machinery.
Oh, I'm not seeing that on my on my list of skills.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
It's in the starter set, but
Does that
maybe
have
they
like,
took it out. Maybe they're like, we can't have people driving tanks everywhere.
I don't know, would that maybe be like a subset of pilot or something?
Maybe.
Do you see
It might
pilot
be.
listed in yours?
I do see pilot listed under persuade, so.
Huh.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah.
But it would make sense if that was under pilot as well.
Yeah.
So.
Maybe.
But we talked about persuade, taking at least half an hour, but all about reasoned logic and discussion. Pilot, which is boat, aircraft, dirigible. I hope I pronounced that right. Dirigible.
Yeah, that's like a hot air, like a Zeppelin.
Yeah, gliding. So there's that. Psychoanalysis, which is really important. If you're making like a doctor or something, this is kind of like this is pretty good because it helps you. Psychoanalysis can return sanity points to an investigator patient once per game month. To learn the progress of therapy, make a D100 roll against the analyst or doctor's psychoanalyst skill. Blech. But psychoanalyst is very good for not only like helping people recover sanity, but also resist like different persuade and fast talk and stuff like that, I believe. Or actually, that might be general psychology. Anyways, still a very good skill to have, more so on the healing side of things. Psychology, in turn, it says perception, common to all humans, to form an idea of another person's motives and character to detect if a person is lying. The keeper may choose to make a concealed psychology rolls on the player's behalf, announcing only the information, true or false, that the user gained by employing it. So, but different skills like persuade, it actually says like this skill can be opposed by persuade or psychology. So when we get into opposed skill checks and stuff like that, that's where it might come in handy. The ride skill is specifically applies to saddle horses, donkeys, and mules. Basically general riding animal care and stuff like that. Science, we briefly mentioned different scientific knowledge such as astronomy, biology, botany, chemistry, cryptology, geology, pharmacy, physics, zoology, etc. Sleight of hand, we talked about that with Marvin.
Before we move on from science, how specific do you want like Marvin to be? So like he's into radio, which like falls under like the electromagnetic spectrum, which is physics. Should I just do physics, or do you want me to be specific on like radio technologies?
I think physics is fine.
Just do physics? Okay.
Yeah.
You probably had to learn some basic physics before you got into the more specific
Probably.
For sure.
radio stuff.
Electrical engineering.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, how much is that, dive into like craft? Because apparently I was looking, you can like have like vacuum tube craft as like a skill.
Ooh, interesting.
Yeah.
Huh.
Anyway, sleight of hand.
Sleight of hand, which is just allows the visual covering up, secreting, or making of an object or objects, perhaps with debris, cloth, or other illusion-promoting material. Also, fine dexterity and manipulation of objects. So, kind of like hiding stuff quickly, as well as like manipulating like stuff with your hands. Spot hidden. So this is as close to perception in D&D as we can get. It's find a secret door or compartment, notice a hidden intruder, see an inconspicuous clue, recognize a repainted automobile, become aware of ambushers, etc., etc. So very, very useful skill as well, just for kind of like seeing in the environment around you. Stealth. Pretty self-explanatory, kind of like attempting to like sneak around and do stuff like that. You have survival, expertise required to survive in extreme environments. Swim, very self-explanatory, the ability to kind of float through water or other liquid. Throw, which is throwing an object. And track, follow a person, vehicle, or animal over earth and through plants. Factors such as time passed since the track were made, rain, and type of ground cover may affect the difficulty level of the roll. So those are all the skills. That was a lot. There's a lot of skills. But hopefully that covered enough for you guys to kind of make your decisions. Yeah. How's everybody feeling about skills and skills checks so far?
Good. I don't know if we want to be... I think we could finish picking and making sure everything's correct off stream. I don't know if we need to worry too much about making sure everything is exactly as it should be. And we wanted to just now. But I do just... There's spaces for like just 4 blanks without any like subcategory or anything. Is there any guidelines in the starter set about like picking like this is the thing I want to be good at and it doesn't really fall into anything else?
It doesn't cover that in the starter set.
Okay.
But maybe that's where operate heavy machinery goes.
Maybe.
Oh, also I figured out where your stuff how to figure out how many education points you have or occupational skill points that you get. That's actually on page 41 under sample occupations. They give you kind of a or 40 and 41. They make a note about if you are they give you a bunch of professions. Some of those are noted as Lovecraftian, which they're actual professions in some of H.P. Lovecraft's stories. If creating a new occupation, confine the number of skills to 8. Otherwise, the notation and occupation being concentrated or any. And your occupational skill points that you use either you use some sort of system to figure out what it is. Use whichever sample occupation is closest to the one that you'd really kind of go with sometimes this can be education times 2 plus dex times 2 or education times 4, whichever kind of makes the most sense for what your occupation happens to be.
Ah, super cool.
Yes. So sometimes, depending upon what you're doing, you can get maybe more than just kind of the fast build or whatever it is.
Yeah. And
yeah.
I might have found an answer for you, Dalton, while I was going through the skill. Oh, no. Yeah. Hey, Dalton. While I was going through the skills in the Keeper Handbook, on page 73, I found one that's not originally listed called Read Lips. It is listed as an uncommon skill. Mm-hmm. So I bet those blank spots are for additional adventures and whatnot that may grant you new skills that you acquire as you progress through, or that you might get this at the beginning.
That makes sense. Like if you do something like specific really well and the keeper is like, you know what, you've gotten really good at that, done it a couple times. Why don't you add that to like a list of things you're good at?
Yeah. If you don't mind. Sorry.
I was just gonna say real quick, Dalton. I got like as a writer is my occupation, right? So it says I get like a special skill that is literature history.
Yeah,
which is like 20 plus 1d20, and I ended up getting a 15 on the roll. So, so I just put it in one of those blank spots.
Mm-hmm.
Perfect.
Yeah, that is a good question though, and I don't know if it's just a mix of that, or if it's specifically things that you come across in there, and that's it. But if you happen to be creating a deaf character, then you would want to have something like Read Lips.
Read Lips.
And that works really well for your role play. So I like if you are able to, or at least want to play that way, where you can add your own skills like that. That seems awesome.
Yeah.
In a role playing sense of things. So.
Exactly. So there's definitely a lot more rules that are covered in the Keeper Handbook, in the Investigator Handbook, which is really cool. Like you were saying, it's nice because we're about to get into how roles work and push roles and all that stuff here in a second. And in these books, if you're looking under all the skills, especially as a keeper, it talks about like what happens if you fail and all of that, which is really nice to know, especially when we get into this kind of stuff. So. We can go ahead and roll into skill checks if you guys are ready then. Cool.
Sounds good to me.
So I've already kind of described the basic skill checks already. A lot of these different skill checks are going to be like, are you going to try to drive a car and it's a difficult situation? Go ahead and give me a drive auto roll. And then you have to roll it against your current skill, whether that you chose it as your occupation skill, you chose it as just a personal interest skill, or you just have the base original percentage, which is 20%. If you just have that base skill level in it, then you roll against that. So all you do is you take those 2 percentage dice. Let me show them real quick. Boom, boom. Take the 2 percentage dice, you roll them up, and you compare your result to what your skill level is. And like we were saying before, you're trying to hit the number or under. It sounds counterintuitive at first, but if you think about it, if you have an 80 in a skill, that means you have an 80% chance to hit that, or to be successful in it. One of the things I do want to talk about before we kind of get too far in depth with that is there are such a things as critical success. We mentioned that a little bit earlier, but there's also something as a fumble roll too. So let me pull that up real quick. Sorry, I was just on it. Does anybody have any questions about those skills real quick or anything like that? Okay.
No, I think the basics of the rules are very simple. Like you ask for a type of check and we roll and we check if the number we rolled is at or below our number. And sometimes you can ask for hard checks or more difficult ones and we use the half. Or you can ask for extremely difficult ones and we have to use the 5th number.
Mm-hmm.
That all makes sense.
Exactly. Cool. So sometimes we talked about using luck to kind of like adjust skill rolls to make them a success. But sometimes if you roll and you don't want to use your luck, you can also do what's called a pushed roll. So what that is that, say, Marvin, I'm gonna have you make a. You're trying to find this library book, right? You're trying to find out about. You're trying to find out who checked out this last library book. So I need you to roll me a library use skill, whatever your library use is. Oh, it's a 50. Nice.
Yes. I rolled a 74.
Okay, so before we kind of talk about the results, what you can do, Dalton, is you can say, I actually really want to find this book, so I'm going to push the roll. That means you get to re-roll and try to get a success again. However, we have to discuss, because like when you push a roll, while you get a second chance to succeed, you also have the consequences get more intense. Mm-hmm. So essentially, if you fail the roll a second time, worse things would happen on the push roll than just failing it the first time. But also, you could possibly succeed. So we would agree, like, if you're like, oh wait, I really want to make this roll, can I push it? I'd be like, okay, here's what I'm thinking. If you push the roll, you get to find the book like within an hour of getting there. Mm-hmm. But if you fail it, it's gonna take you 2 days before you get to find that book.
Yeah.
You get to find it, but it's gonna take 2 days to find it if you fail the push roll. And if Dalton's like, yeah, I want to do that, rolls the push roll and see if he does it.
I rolled a 66, so I still fail, which means I'm going to be in the library for a while.
And then we'd probably go to the other party members, investigators, and see what they're doing.
The librarian comes up and shushes you. Your soul's destroyed. You go temporarily insane.
Yeah. And I can't use luck to modify a pushed roll, right? That's only on the initial one.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's a part of that.
Interesting.
So you say you can't push your luck in this game?
You can push your luck.
There's multiple ways to push my luck, apparently.
Yeah.
So yeah, so that's one of the things that you can do for like just making normal investigation checks and stuff like that. Now, opposed skill rolls are basically when it's like between you and somebody else, whether it's like two of the investigators that are here are like trying to oppose each other on something. Like, let's say Dan and sorry, Justin, what was your character's name again?
Leo get into an arm wrestling match. Well, I'd probably roll that as a contested strength opposed strength skill roll that would have you both roll. And how this works is basically it works not on who gets a higher number. It works on success levels. So if you remember how we were talking about before, if you hit your number or below, that's a regular success. If you get half of what your number is, your half value, that's a hard success. And if you get 1/5 of your normal value, that's an extreme success. So while these two are doing an opposed strength roll, it's not going to be on the numbers, it's going to be on the levels of success. So, Dan, what did you get for your strength roll, and what level of success is it?
Okay, so hold on. I roll what do I type in roll 20?
1D 100? R
/ RD 100.
Yes.
I got a 30.
30. Okay. What is that? What level of success is that compared to your strength score?
So my strength score is a 60.
60. So that is a hard success.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So Justin, can you go ahead and do a strength roll for Leo?
Yep. Let's see. Oh, I think I got you beat
Oh, damn.
narrowly. But I think
Okay,
I got
27, but what level of success is it?
you beat. Ooh,
What's your
what?
normal strength?
70.
70. So yeah, that is also a hard success, right? That's not a 1/5 value of 70, right?
1/5 would be 14.
14. So even though you rolled higher, both of you got the hard success level. So that ties. Instead, remember, it's not by numbers, it's by success levels. And since both of you rolled above or below half of what your normal strength is, it is tied for that success level. So, in the case of a draw, the side with the higher skill value wins, which would be Leo's 70. Because Leo has a 70 strength and Dan has a 60 strength. So once again, the numbers on the rolls don't matter. It's about levels of success and then comparing the skill levels. Now, if let's just say, for example, Leo and Dan both had a strength score of 60, then you would roll, both sides roll a D100 and whoever gets the lowest value wins. But as you can see, there's different levels to it.
What if they had both failed? Is it still whoever just has the highest base strength?
I think it counts as the same thing.
Okay.
So it's just like compare their levels of success.
Cool.
So even if they both failed, I think it's still a draw.
Mm-hmm.
So.
And we would compare, and Leo would win because he has a higher regular
Strength.
strength. Cool. And
Yep.
I just want to make sure, in chat we had someone asking if you can push rolls in combat, and I looked it up, and I don't
No.
think you can't. Okay. Just make sure I was right.
cannot. Yes, combat rolls cannot be pushed.
Same
Can you
thing
use
with
luck
sanity.
in combat?
What's that?
Can you use your luck in combat?
Not for damage.
Not for damage, but like whether or not you hit.
Use it to hit.
Yes.
Cool.
From my understanding, that is what you can use it for.
Cool.
And then Christian was asking about sanity.
No, I was saying is same thing goes with sanity rolls. You cannot push those.
Yeah. So it's luck cannot be spent on luck rolls, damage rolls, sanity rolls, or to determine the amount sanity points lost. So.
And then you cannot push your roll for damage or sanity.
Yeah, think about it like this. Combat is basically, and we'll get into this here in a second, combat is basically like opposed skill rolls against other people, against enemies. In the opposed skill roll, like the arm wrestling contest between Dan and Leo, neither of them can push their rolls against each other. It is what it is. Mm-hmm. But if you're outside and it's just one of you guys using your skills against something, yes, you can push those rolls. So, does that make more sense?
That makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. All right. Now, there's also bonus and penalty die. So how this works is kind of like advantage and disadvantage in D&D. So while you're rolling this kind of stuff, let's say like, once again, Dan and Leo are like, all right, well, hold on. Let's do a round 2, right? And I'm just like, oh, well, you know, they do it like the next day after a long night or something like that. Maybe I'm like, oh, well, Leo, you accidentally got into a brawl after the night before, so you're a little bit weaker today, and you have a little bit of swelling on face. So I'm going to say you roll with a penalty die. So that means you take 2 of the percentage die, and you take the higher roll of those because
2 roll with disadvantage.
Yes. Whereas like maybe, or I can say like, oh, like Dan, you woke up, you drank a strange potion last night, and you're feeling above and better. I don't know what happened, but you drank something and it's doing really good, and I'm gonna grant you a bonus die. You do the same thing, but take the lower number. So essentially, you're getting advantage. So those can be included in opposed skill rolls and combat. And in fact, that's going to be really important when we get there. Yeah. Yes?
Might have to do some finagling in Roll20's dice roller to get how that works, because you can't just roll 2d100 and pick the bigger number or the lower number. Because the way it works, you're rolling 2d10 and you're rolling 2 of the tens place, right?
Yeah.
And picking the higher or lower of the tens place.
Yeah.
So there might be some
nailing we have to do.
Yeah, I'm curious. I'm sure that there are instructions out there online to make the dice roll correct, but it's not just rolling 2d100 and picking the higher or lower.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe rolling d10s twice and then picking that as your tens place. So like you roll a 1 and a 6, so you would get 10 or 60.
And then you would roll the ones place after
Yeah.
as a separate d10 roll.
Yeah. You know, while we're kind of discussing these different dice rolls and everything, I did want to just clarify like the critical success and the fumble rolls, because it is slightly different. So hitting a 1, like we said before, critical success. So basically, if you get a 1, something beneficial occurs beyond simply achieving the goal. The nature of the good fortune is at my discretion, the keeper, although players may make suggestions. In combat, for example, a critical success means that the attacker has hit a vulnerable spot and causes maximum damage. There's also rules for extreme damage, which we'll kind of go over, which is pretty cool as well. However, if you roll between a 96 and 100, that is called a fumble. So it just means something really bad. It's hitting a nat 1 in D&D. So in the same kind of nature, it's not just hitting 100. It's hitting that 96 to 100 when you roll that.
So you have a 5% chance of messing up.
Exactly.
Like really bad.
Yeah.
Got it.
I do want to clarify though. If the dice roll required for success is 50 or over, and the dice read 100, a fumble has occurred. But if the dice roll required for success is below 50 and the dice read 96 through 100, a fumble has occurred. So if your skill is 50 or above, it's actually not the 96 to 100 chance. It's only the 100 chance. But if it's below 50, it's that 5% chance.
So you're rewarded for being more proficient in what you're rolling.
Yep. So, for the most part, they don't cover too much about fumbling and stuff like that in the starter set. So I just wanted to read that just so everybody had like kind of a general understanding. But
from what I heard, that's just kind of like lore keeper free reign to be a little bit extra punishing with the failure, as opposed to it just not happening.
Yeah. So, but other than that, next up we have sanity. Then I was gonna cover combat. And then talk a little bit, only a tiny bit, about hit points and healing, because it probably won't happen that often. Talk about rewards of success, even though just kind of like cover it real quick, and then we should be pretty good. We can go back over our characters and then kind of end out our session 0. Does that sound good with everybody?
Yeah.
Cool. So, if you guys have already read up on the sanity rules, feel free to chime in at any point. But sanity is, once again, a really cool mechanic in this game. Ashley mentioned it earlier before when she's talking about corruption with Symborum and stuff like that. Sanity is basically, at different points of the game, when you're, not necessarily when you're introduced to the Cthulhu mythos, like say you see Cthulhu itself, that obviously that might challenge your sanity in the game, so you might go insane or something like that. But it's not just that. Sometimes if you just witness, if your friend or companion like just dies, that might be a sanity roll, because you literally just witnessed somebody get murdered out of nowhere with like a gunshot. Could be something completely normal, but it might ruin your sanity a bit. That's in the game. So essentially, from different points in time, we're going to make what's called a sanity check. If we look at Marvin Martin right now, his sanity is 50. So if I'm just like, oh no, Martin, you see blood on the walls, and it's written in a pentagram, and obviously there's cultish things afoot, but you just witnessed this event. Go ahead and make a sanity roll for me.
I rolled a 42.
So, you pass. You're fine. Sometimes, now, this case in particular, it's just some blood on the wall, so it's not like a big sanity loss. But sometimes, you'll still lose sanity, even though it's not, you passed your roll. So, for example, how it looks like in the book, and it's going to be a little hard to see, but boop, boop. Basically, if it's like a lower or minor sanity loss thing, it's going to be like, if you pass, you lose 0 sanity, but if you fail, you lose a d6 of sanity. So that's why, just like our luck, it has like, you have your max 50 sanity, but you have your 50 sanity that you can like decrease from and stuff like that. So normally I'd be like, oh, you don't lose any sanity, so don't worry about it. But sometimes, if it's like a greater thing, like you do witness a monster or something, even if you pass, it's like, I'm sorry, you have to lose 2 sanity, but you don't have to lose for example, if you failed, you would have lost 1d10 of sanity.
Yeah.
And stuff like that. And that's not all with it. So with sanity, if you fail, like let's say, it turns out, oh, Martin, you witnessed Cthulhu himself, and you failed your sanity roll. Go ahead and roll 1d10 of minus sanity for me.
10.
Oh my god. So that max amount.
Get it out now.
Oh my god. So if you lose 5 or more sanity points as the consequence of a single sanity roll, like what Marvin just happened, you have to roll a 1d100 against your intelligence. Okay. What this is doing is basically, if he passes, if Marvin succeeds at his intelligence roll, he recognizes like, oh my god, I just saw Cthulhu himself. If he fails, he's just like, no, I don't think that's Cthulhu. That can't be Cthulhu.
That was weird.
Right, that was weird. That didn't happen. So this is where Ashley was talking about too, is just like, or somebody else mentioned earlier, if you have kind of a dumb character, sometimes you're not affected by the creepy stuff happening around you. But if he does recognize it, bad things are gonna happen. But let's see. Did you pass or fail your intelligence roll?
I passed.
You passed. You recognize the horrors that you just witnessed. So, unfortunately, it goes down even further. So how this whole thing works is that maybe you're at the top here and you pass your sanity roll, you're doing fine. But if you fail, boom, you go to the next layer down. You lose sanity, you lose a lot of sanity, and then all of a sudden, boom, you have to make an intelligence roll to realize, either be fine or boom, suffer essentially what's called temporary insanity. That when you suffer temporary insanity, go ahead and roll 1d10 for the number of hours you're going to be temporary insane for.
9 hours.
9 hours? You're not doing good on the rolls right now.
I've got good dice. I've got high number dice.
So, when you go temporary insane, a couple things happen. First thing is you are going to suffer a bout of madness, but then also you're probably going to experience a new phobia or mania, depending on what you saw. So go ahead and roll me another d10 for a bout of madness you're about to face.
I rolled a 6.
Okay, you faint. So roll me another d10 for how many rounds you are fainting for. So let's say this happened in the middle of the combat. That means Dalton's character Marvin is going to be out for
2 rounds?
2 rounds. You fainted for 2 rounds. Let's say that this was a creature that has like a bunch of tentacles, and I'm gonna say you have a new phobia of I don't know, whatever a phobia for squids are. That's what I'm gonna say.
Squid phobia.
Squid phobia. Yep. There's a ton of different stuff though, depending on what you can do. There's fear of heights, spiders, books. Manias include like pathological kindness, obsession with pain, irrational cheerfulness. There's a lot of different stuff that you can do, but those are the kinds of things that you happen. So essentially, when you go temporary insane, a lot of stuff happens, and in fact, stuff on the back of your character sheet can kind of change. So you don't have to do it right now, but I highly encourage you guys filling out a lot of these different things, which Dalton, you can go to the character sheet if you want, but I would suggest filling out ideology of beliefs, significant people for sure, meaningful locations, treasured possessions, and some traits that your character has. Because while playing the game, if you go temporary insane by witnessing stuff, some of that stuff on the back of your sheet might change. It might be corrupted based on the fears that you have experienced.
Yeah, and like you mentioned,
adds,
there's a section for like phobias and manias where like that would get added to. Like you want my fear of tentacled creatures added.
Yes. Yeah.
Damn. I'm like legitimately afraid of spiders and heights and claustrophobic.
Yep.
So I've like actually added those in. So I'm starting with three of the main ones, you know.
So that's the basics of temporary insanity. We can cover more when we actually experience it in the game, which we probably will. But essentially, it's like a cool factor that like you can't just like see monsters and be fine. Going along with the philosophy of Call of Cthulhu, you're gonna see stuff, and then you are gonna be affected by it almost permanently sometimes. So very cool. Did anybody else have anything to add before we move on to combat? All right, cool. All right, let's head on into combat. So, combat is interesting. So, just like in D&D, you kind of like have like you set initiative. And how initiative is set is you're not rolling anymore. It's just determined by the highest dexterity and then goes down from there. So, for example, what is everybody's dexterity? Marvin has 70.
40.
40.
70 for my dexterity.
70. Cool.
50.
50. Ashley, what's your dexterity? Did I miss it?
80.
80. Oh, so Ashley's character would go first. I'm trying to see if you tie for dexterity, what it would be for, but I'll have to figure that out here in a little bit. Oh. Anyways, so basically, when you get into combat, obviously, you can always run. Running is always an option. Everything we covered before is like 90% of the game. 80% of the time, you're just trying to figure out this mystery, doing and doing your skill checks and stuff like that, and then rolling to see what you do. 10% of the time is dealing with you guys going insane from witnessing different stuff. The other 10% is right here in combat. And it can be pretty deadly. One of the things that I definitely encourage like new people playing or new keepers is to really let your players know that like combat's not really encouraged or the point of Call of Cthulhu. While we're about to go into a lot of different rules to kind of cover that, it's easy to die. It is very easy to die. And so running is always an option and doing all of that and everything. So but the basics of combat works like this. Let's say Ashley, your character is going up and you're fighting, all of you are fighting 3 cultists right now. And they're gonna fight back. So Ashley, do you have any weapons on you right now? Do you have like a small knife or a club, or do you have some fists that you can fight back, or are you running away? What are you doing?
So I have a handgun, but I don't want to bust that out yet.
Okay.
Can I find some sort of like knife nearby? Like, what's the setting that we're in right now?
Let's say you are in, you've busted into their ritual that's being done within a cave, but...
Do you think there's a candlestick that I could grab?
Oh yeah, for sure, there's a candlestick that
I'm gonna grab a candlestick and try to hit him with it.
I'm gonna say that's gonna be like a small club. I'll say that's a small club.
That seems reasonable.
Yep. So, essentially, how this works is that that would be fighting brawl, I believe. So, what is your fighting brawl skill?
It is flat, the 25.
25. So you are rolling to see what your success level for the for the fighting brawl skill is. Now, just like in opposed skill rolls, this is not based on the numbers, but on the success levels, whether it's a fail, success, hard success, meaning half of your skill value, or an extreme success, 1/5 of your skill value.
Okay.
And what the cultists can do in reaction is one of two things. They can either fight back or they can dodge. Now, let's say that they're gonna fight back. So they're gonna roll on their fighting skill to see if they're able to do it. So what skill level did you get, Ash?
Failed. I got a 32.
You got a 32? Yep.
What if I want to push my luck? Can I do that?
You can't push your luck, but you can spend your luck to
Like
make
that.
it.
Can I spend my luck?
Yes.
So I would spend 7 points to get a success.
Perfect. You have a success. So, on the opposite side, they chose to fight back. Now, they also got a success, but here's how fighting back works. So you're choosing to hit this cultist with a candle, and they're trying to fight back against you. But since you're initiating the attack, and they're fighting back, they have to get a higher chance, a higher success level than you to be able to stop your damage from coming in and dealing damage to you. But they did not. They did not do that. You got a success, and they got a success, so that means your attack wins, and you do damage to them. So go ahead and roll. A small club is 1d6 plus your damage bonus. Do you remember what your damage bonus is from the beginning?
0.
0. Perfect.
But I did 5 damage with my candlestick, beating him upside the head.
All right. So I'm going to just kind of play this out a little bit. We don't have to go too far into this, but essentially, let's say that was half of the cultist's health. They would then have to make a check to see if they stay conscious. And if they fail that check, they fall unconscious. And this happens exactly with you guys too. So if you receive damage that is half your health, you have to make a constitution check to stay conscious. If not, you fall unconscious. And also, if you take all of your health damage in one attack, you're flat out dead. So, which... say you guys have the same health as a cultist, and somebody's using a handgun and rolls the maximum of damage, which is 10, means you get a headshot and you kill them outright. So,
Spencer, to clarify,
yes.
Do you mean you have to take half damage in one hit, or if you hit under half health?
No, one hit.
You hit half damage in one hit, you have to do, okay.
Yep. No, that's a good question. Thank you. So, yeah. So essentially that's like one part of fighting. Basically, Ashley gets to decide whether she wants to attack or run away or do something else like a fighting maneuver. She chose to attack. The cultist gets to either dodge or fight back, and chose to fight back and lost because they did not get a success level higher than Ashley, which is great. Now, next up, we said it looks like Leo. Marvin had a 70, and what was it? Leo has 70 as well, right, for dexterity?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes, he did.
These cultists are weird, and they have a 75 for their dexterity because I wanna demonstrate something else real quick.
Shenanigans.
Yeah. So, Leo, a cultist runs up to you and goes to stab you. You can do one of two things. You can fight back, or you can dodge. Now, remember, fighting back means you have to get a attack level higher, success level higher than what the cultist is doing to you. Or if you dodge. If you dodge and you meet or get a higher level of success, if you get the same level of success or get a higher level of success when you're dodging, you don't take any damage. You get out of the way of it. So it's kind of like a risk reward, whereas like you can play defensively and dodge out of the way of stuff and have a higher chance of kind of like not taking any damage, or you can risk it and try to do damage back against them.
Well, you know, my brawl's actually a little bit higher than my dodge. So I'm gonna go with that. I'm gonna go with brawl. So I'm gonna try and like
fight back.
Yeah, I'm gonna try and fight back and get up and kind of see if I can push away his knife and then clock him one good. Right.
All right.
Sock him in the kisser.
Give him one. What for?
Give him the what for, G.
You see?
Ah.
So what
Clap
level
him
of
with
success
clap him
did
with
you
these
get?
hands. Okay. Yeah, I got to roll. Let's see. So roll 1d100. Oh, nice.
Yeah.
I didn't get the 5th, but I still got it pretty good.
All right. So it was a hard success you got? With the
I got
saving?
a what is it? It's under half, so major success, is that right? I forget
Hard
Success.
It's a hard success. Yeah,
That's
you
a
got it.
hard success.
He only got a normal success. So since you fought back but got a hard success instead of just his normal success, you beat him and you deal damage back to him. So what were you fighting with again? Go ahead and roll your damage.
Well, I guess it would have just been
Melee?
melee. Yeah, it's just these hands. I gotta
All right.
make a note to buy some brass knuckles.
Yeah, D3 plus your damage bonus.
Alrighty, so that's gonna be roll 1d3 plus 1d4 because I get damage bonus from being boo, 4 damage.
Boom. There we go. It wasn't half his health, but he took some damage. Now, I'm gonna skip ahead just a little bit, just because we're running a bit on time, out of time today for our session, but that's okay. We're covering a lot of different rules, and Call of Cthulhu, especially when it gets to combat, is pretty complicated. But also, we might never get this far, which is really interesting. So there are also firearm rules, as well as fighting maneuvers, which fighting maneuvers are very similar, where you just do a regular fighting attack using the brawl skill, and the opponent can dodge and fight back as well, but then you can get to disarm, knock an opponent to a floor, or seize or hold an opponent, which is pretty cool. There are also rules for being outnumbered, which add bonus or penalty die, depending on if you've already taken an action on your turn. But we can go over those later. I'm going to cover real quick healing. First aid. If one of you guys go down, and let's say Christian's character knows first aid, Christian's character can run over and stop someone from dying, as long as they didn't have, stop a person from dying if they suffered like a major wound and such, and give them 1 HP to get them conscious again if they pass their first aid check. And you can only use first aid once every time you take damage. So once first aid is applied, you can't apply it again unless you take a different point of damage. Same thing with medicine. So first aids, yes, go ahead, Ashley.
That per person, like, could I give first aid to Leo and first aid to Martin?
Mm-mm. So it is, once the first aid is applied to you, it is done.
Like, once.
Yeah.
I'm confused still.
So each person who has first aid has 1 charge of first aid that they can use. And each person who can receive first aid has 1 charge of first aid that they can receive unless they receive more damage.
Yes.
Then they can then receive first aid. So let's say in this circumstance, you and Christian's character both had a first aid charge. I took damage, right? I took I took some damage. And Spencer, feel free to step in if I'm explaining this wrong, but to my understanding, this is how this works. You step in, heal my point of damage, right? You step in, use your first aid charge, and then I now have had that first aid charge of mine used because I was healed, right? I then, take more damage. You don't have a healing charge to use because you used your first aid charge. I now have another first aid charge because I have a different injury.
Yeah.
And then Christian still has his available because he didn't use one. He may now use his first aid charge. When Christian uses that first aid charge on my second injury, it then exhausts his first aid charge and then would exhaust my new first aid charge for my second injury.
Okay.
Very close, except I don't believe there's a limit to how many times a person can apply first aid. So I think a person can apply first aid to multiple people as many times. But you can only receive first aid once before you take more damage. Yeah.
Okay, because
so
that was
my
Ashley's
question.
That was Ashley's original question, and I thought you said no. Okay,
we're all good. We're working it out.
Okay.
We're good. Yeah.
Okay.
I'll check in post to make sure that I point out whether
Yeah.
Spencer's wrong or not.
Sure, go right ahead. Prove me wrong. Tell me I'm wrong. So you only get 1 HP from a first aid appliance. Medicine takes 1 hour to do, but you get 1d3 of damage back. But you can, once again, same thing. You can only use it every time you take damage. So very similar rules. This is not a game where you can easily heal back damage. There is, especially if you take a major wound from taking like half your health gone and stuff like that, which we'll get into more later. That's a whole recovery system too. Which if you're doing one-offs probably won't come up, but definitely if you're doing longer games and your investigators survive, then it's definitely something that's more important later on. But yeah. That's kind of like the basics of healing, and we'll definitely go through these rules as we're playing through the first adventure, but this is just our session 0 and kind of going through that. So, lastly, rewards. We already talked about, like, if you roll a successful skill check, you get to check mark it, and at the end of a session, you not only get to recover some luck, but you get to possibly increase your skills, which is really cool. So, that's really nice to do. That's kind of like the rewards that you can get. And that is the basics of Call of Cthulhu. Real quick, does anybody have any questions? We can also take questions from our viewers, see if anybody has any questions that way, and we'll answer them right now.
No questions in the immediate. I'm sure that plenty will come up
as we're discussing. Yeah,
as we start playing, start getting into things. But
sounds good. Cool.
I can do a quick attributions while we're waiting for see if there's any other questions in the chat. We are using the Call of Cthulhu starter set. It is the 7th edition. And then we are also using Roll20. We didn't use it a whole lot, but that's where we were doing some of our dice rolls, but you'll be seeing more of that as we get into actually playing next week. As far as graphics and music, they are all copyright free. But big thank you to everyone who watched today. Did I miss anything, Spencer?
No, you nailed it. We have some music, royalty-free music that we're using, but we'll make sure to link in our videos and everything. If you missed today's session, if you missed today's session, you're not going to see this. But if you missed any previous sessions from our first campaign or anything like that, you can obviously go to our YouTube page. We post highlights and the full streams on there. So you can catch up on our D&D Essentials Kit adventure if you wanted to see that. But yeah.
What was that name of the channel again, Spencer?
It is ABCs of RPGs, Dan. Thank you for asking.
Oh, you mean where we teach people the ABCs of tabletop RPGs?
That's right. All sorts of different stuff. While we've only covered the D&D Essentials Kit, and right now we're covering the Call of Cthulhu Kit, we're planning on doing more in the future.
Yeah, let us know if there's one you want us to do in the future.
Please.
Yes.
Please
definitely
do.
give us a shout out if you want to see something. You're confused about stuff. We'd love to take a crack at it.
And if you're seeing this on YouTube, please like and subscribe. Thank you.
Please like and subscribe. Yeah. So, last but not least, before we start our session 1 next week, I'm going to give you some background information on your very first mystery. So, before we get into anything, I do want to let you guys know you can make up whatever background, however you want your guys to tie into this next adventure. Feel free to come up with your own thing. But I'm gonna read you something that the starter set kind of gives that I think is pretty cool. It allows you to be a part of the Society for the Exploration of the Unexplained, a society founded in 1889 by a group of professors and students who had a mutual interest in the unexplained phenomena at the Miskatonic University in Arkham. So you can be a part of this membership, or here's what I'm going to read to you for the introduction to the adventure. You have recently each been contacted by Rupert Merriweather, an aging man you have known for some time. Merriweather is unwell, seems not long for this world. He has asked you to meet him at St. Mary's Teaching Hospital in Arkham at 1 o'clock on Thursday. You haven't seen the man for quite some time, so this urgent summons appears to be quite important. Perhaps he has something to tell you before he dies. And that is the adventure hook into Edge of Darkness, our first adventure with Call of Cthulhu. So, if your investigators knew Rupert Merriweather, either by being in the Society for the Exploration of the Unexplained or other avenues, walks of life, feel free to come up with that in between now and then. But without further ado, I think we're done for today.
Yeah.
All right.
Thanks for watching, everybody.
Thanks for watching, everyone. We'll see you next week.
Can't wait to see you guys next Sunday.
At 2 o'clock
At 2 p.m.
Eastern. Yes.
Be there. Or be square.
Yeah. Witness Dan. Dan's character, Dan, die.
I'm playing as myself.
I need to talk to you guys about the schedule for next week if we can do that. Stay tuned for any updates on our changes in schedule. I actually need to talk to everybody real quick about it.
All right. Sounds good.
All right.
Bye, guys.
Bye, everybody.
Thanks. Bye.